Welcome elected members, staff, guests and members of the public to the Ordinary Council meeting of the 28th of May 2025. I declare this meeting opened at 5:30. The City of Busselton acknowledges the Wardania Bibleman people as the traditional custodians of the region and pays our respect to their elders past, present and emerging. This meeting is being audio recorded for minute-taking purposes and is also being live streamed on the City of Busselton YouTube channel, and I would request that people set their phones to silent if you could. We have a full members attendance, so no one's missing. I have no apologies. I will be putting in an approved leave of absence possibly for the 25th of June, but I'll get that sorted. So, announcements. I'd just like to say that starting on Friday, we have National Reconciliation Week. So that's taking place between 27th of May and the 3rd of June, and with this year's theme being Bridging Now to Next, which reflects an ongoing connection between the past, the present and the future. I'd just like to say that due to the bad weather that is forecasted for Friday, the scheduled reconciliation walk has been cancelled, but instead there will be a gathering at the YCAB, or the Youth Community Activity Building, at 10 a.m. this Friday for speeches, food and that famous chocolate cake. I'd also like to reach out and say a big congratulations to Mike Cyril Gillen, who will be 100 years old on Saturday, 31st of May. And as a fellow fire brigade volunteer, I'd wish him all the best on his birthday and hope himself and his family have a great day. And just to say that on Sunday, it was a great opportunity. I attended the honouring of the 90th year anniversary of the St John of Baptist Anglican Church in Metricup, where Bishop Ian did the service, and people came down even as far as Perth. So it was standing room only in that small church, and they were very appreciative of all the work that the city has done in getting the burial site put together and the paths and the gates. So it was. The cemetery is looking a lot neater now, so they do thank us all for that. Disclosures of interest. I've just got one from Councillor Manish on item 12.2 and also from Councillor Cox on 12.2 and item 12.4, which will be read out at that time. There's no responses to previous questions taken on notice, and now we move into public question time, where members of the public have the opportunity to ask questions of council about matters relevant to the city. I will take this opportunity to remind everyone that the public question time is conducted according to the council meetings, information sessions and decision-making processes, policy and the city's standing orders. We have received 2 bookings for public question time tonight, and firstly we have Vincenzo Salvatore Granari. I hope I got that right.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
So I refer to page 2 of the Metricup Yelverton Road City's response to petition report. The report states that no allocation is made over the 10-year planning period for upgrade of unsealed roads. So the question is, does this mean that the city has undertaken analysis to show that no currently unsealed road will reach the vehicle per day count of 150 over the next 10 years to warrant consideration for sealing? If the analysis has not been undertaken in the city's policy of providing no allocation of funds over the 10-year planning period for the upgrade of unsealed roads, the analysis could be flawed. If the analysis has been undertaken, can the analysis be made available? And if the analysis has not been undertaken, will an analysis be undertaken on the estimated PVD of currently unsealed roads over the next 10 years to guide the city's policy in planning of upgrades of unsealed roads?
Thank you.
I have,
Sorry, yep.
I have another question.
Fourth question.
Would you like me to?
Well, we normally limit it to 3, but
I know, sorry, I've only got 2 questions.
There was 3 questions already, sorry. Sorry? I will allow one more question. If you...
Okay. The report states that page 7 of the report states that the project sealing of Metric Up Yelverton Road is not recommended for inclusion in the 5-year program. Does this mean that the city has undertaken an analysis of what the VPD count numbers for Metric Up Yelverton Road will be over the next 5 years?
Okay. Mr. CEO, I'll refer these questions to you, if I may.
So, for that first question, thanks, Mr. Granari. The city's local planning strategy doesn't identify growth areas near the localities of Metric Up or Yelverton, and therefore it's not expected that Metric Up Yelverton Road will receive additional traffic generated from these residential developments. So that was the first question. The answer to the first question.
Yep.
Yep.
There was a question relating to there's no allocation for unsealed road upgrades in the next 10 years. Has a report on all the ungraded, all the unsealed roads over the next 10 years been undertaken in order to make that determination? And then in relation to the Metric Up Yelverton Road, which is our specific sort of area of concern, then the report said there's no recommendation for any expenditure. It's not in the works program for the next 5 years. And the question again was, what was that based on? Because the decision criteria, the economic decision criteria, is that it's got to meet 150 vehicle movements per day count in order for a consideration to be given.
Okay, so that's one of the criteria, obviously.
Yep.
In that, so, but that's correct. There is no budget in the forward 5 to 10 years for upgrades to unsealed roads.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm going to have to limit it to the answers because we do have a lot of people here today. Sorry, it's just the procedure. But you are always welcome to come in at a CAS session and discuss this with council, or you can possibly reach out to one of the directors and get these answers more clearly. It's just we're in the middle of an ordinary council meeting. I hope you appreciate that, Mr. Granari. But you had a third question, which was...
Can I just clarify that third question?
Yeah, so the third question was, will an analysis be undertaken on the estimated PVD of the unsealed Metric Up Yelverton roads over the next 5 years to substantiate the office's recommendation that the project should not be included in the 5-year programme of works? That was your question. Look, the funding allocations in the long-term financial plan are based around the meetings, the renewals and requirements of the city network, affordability and available resources to maintain the existing level of service across the network. As indicated in the report, the threshold of 150 vehicles per day is the city's warrant or trigger for reviewing the whole of life costs and does not directly influence the prioritisations of these projects. So, and with regards to your fourth question,
It sounded like the fourth question was a repeat of the first one that I heard, Mr. Mayor.
Very similar. So, look, I hope that answers, but if not, we've got your questions here and we will be responding to you.
Okay, look, I'd appreciate, because I understand you've got a lot on.
Sure. Thank you.
And I would appreciate a response just because I'm not clear.
Yeah. I did actually drive on your road on Sunday to have a look at it, and they've done a good job, I believe.
There's no comparison now. It's just been...
Yes, so you were heard. You were listened to. Thank you.
So thank you.
Next I have Mr. Keith Sims.
Keith Sims, Busselton. Good evening, Mayor, councillors and CEO and staff. So I have 2 questions on saltwater. Recently, Channel 7 stated that saltwater is being delayed until the new year. Can you please confirm that the current construction completion and the opening dates?
So currently the contractor has indicated a construction completion date of October 2025. There will then be a period of commissioning and preparation. So we are expecting to take bookings in early 2026.
So when opening is early 2026 or taking bookings? That's two things.
We're expecting to take bookings in early 2026. I sincerely hope that we will be opening in 2026, but I cannot confirm that at this stage.
Okay. Question 2, also saltwater. Has there been any further payments for legal and architect fees since a previous advice in March of this year of 1.3 million and 3.5 million, basically, respectively?
Sure. Yes, further payments have been made, and we can find out the information, provide it to you administratively.
Okay. I didn't expect if there was, because I put it in late as a request, so thank you.
Yeah, appreciate that.
So this one is for the triathlon. Mayor, you advised that you were speaking to the triathlon organisers and the CEO with meetings booked to discuss the community concerns on this issue. Can you please advise how these meetings are progressing and what outcomes you have achieved so far?
Thank you. A post-event evaluation meeting was held with the organisers just this Monday, where the issues of booking an escort service to leave Port Geographe was raised, among other feedback. The City Stakeholder Relations Manager was at the evaluation meeting, and as a result is looking at ways of improving communication about the road closures and the vehicle escort services to the residents. Each year in planning the event, organisers consult with the Port Geographe and Wannerup Residents Association. Feedback and ideas on how any improvements can be made can be provided to them.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Could I make a suggestion? Can we turn the air on?
Oh, yes. May I ask one of the staff, if I may, or through the CEO, to... Thank you. Are there any other further questions from the public? If you'd like to come forward, announce your name and where you're from. Thank you.
Evening all. Michelle Shackleton from Abbey. First question is, they all relate to the Dunsborough Lake Sporting Pavilion proposal. Barnard Park was redeveloped in 2015 with plans that closely resemble those proposed for the Dunsborough Lake Sporting Precinct. However, since its relaunch, Barnard Park has become less appealing to sporting groups due to issues with its management plan, model rather. What plans are in place to evaluate and improve this management model before a potentially ineffective plan is copied and implemented for the 4 sporting codes that are anticipating a similar pavilion in Dunsborough, please?
CEO?
Yeah, I think there's obviously been constant review of a lot of models that have been put in place for sport and rec facilities. Just today, the staff have mentioned they're also looking at other examples as well. So that's definitely part of the review if there were some management plans put in place for a new facility, should that go ahead.
Mm-hmm. So it's not going to be the same? It's not cut and paste?
Is that your second question?
Barnard? No, I'm just trying to clarify what your answer was because it wasn't very clear.
No, it's clear that, yes, we will be looking at ones that we already have as well as others if there is a management plan that's required if something goes ahead.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Why has the community modular drop-in build option mentioned in the notice of motion this evening not been given any serious consideration in the planning process?
That's in front of us, isn't it?
Yeah, well, that's probably a matter for council to consider tonight, but generally if you're building for a 30 to 50-year timeframe, you don't do temporary options.
Okay. I'm confused by the active comments by Dunsborough Sharks regarding the proposed Dunsborough Lake Sporting Pavilion, which they're no longer affiliated with. So my question is, what key sporting needs will the proposed $6.5 million investment in the Dunsborough Lake Sporting Pavilion fulfil? I.e., if it's, going to be soccer, what is it fulfilling in terms of their needs? If it's going to be basketball, what is that? Rather than you don't.
Sorry, it's not really a
more
question. Can you
Yeah, it
repeat the
is.
actual
Could you
question?
What key sporting needs will the proposed cut out the money investment fulfil in the community of Dunsborough?
Okay, so club room space and activation of active sporting space.
A what? It's
Sorry.
sorry, it was a space for club rooms.
What needs is it addressing?
Yes.
That was the question.
Club
The needs
rooms.
are additional club room space
Yep.
and activation of existing playing space.
Activation of, but yeah, okay. So there's going
Thank
to be
you.
more
That's-
teams playing there?
That's the
That's
answer,
the
sorry.
Okay.
Excuse me, Mr Mayor, I've just got to duck out for a few minutes. I'll be straight back.
Thank you very much. Cheers, appreciate it. Mark that down. Any further questions? Sorry, there's further questions? Sorry.
Yes.
Are you
Thank
asking a
you.
question?
Yes, I am. Thank you, Mr Mayor and councillors. I've come tonight to attend to give a deputation pursuant to the provisions of your Standing Order 6.11, which expressly states that the CEO may approve or alternatively refer the request for a deputation to be decided by simple majority to the council, and that deputation is then authorised to be given 10 minutes. Has the council had a referral by the CEO for the approval by myself, that's Tim Howling, Cornerstone Legal Solicitors, for the purposes of making a deputation for a period of 10 minutes? And if not, are they aware that there was such a request? And if not, why not?
If I may answer this, we've actually got you written down as coming to speak to us we've got our bookings.
Thank you,
Listing?
councillor Love, I appreciate
Well,
it.
I was just reconfirming that the council.
I've
has
expressly
received
said deputation, so just
Yeah,
for
it's
clarity.
deputation rather than... So the answer is no.
I've asked three questions, sorry. No to which question?
No to the fact that you've asked to do a 10-minute deputation? Is that you?
No, if it's been referred to the council for decision in accordance with the
Sorry,
requirements
could
of the
you just
standing
repeat
orders.
the first question then?
Yes,
Thank
certainly.
you.
Was the council informed by the CEO in accordance with standing orders that a request had been made for the purposes of a deputation to the council by Cornerstone Legal, by myself? And if so,
So I'll answer that one, no.
right. If not, why not? That was another question.
Take that on notice.
And will council now, in accordance with its standing orders, make such resolution to approve a deputation for the purposes of council to be addressed on a very important matter tonight, being an amendment to its town planning scheme?
So under 6.2, you are booked in to do a presentation by a party with interest.
Can I indicate that it's a deputation that's requested, and at such time I'll ask the council to make a decision in that respect, because there's evidently two persons, there's a town planner and there's a lawyer, who wish to make such deputation to the council in your standing orders.
Okay, if you can
in
just
respect
hold-
of that, indicate 10 minutes each. But I'll address you a little bit further at that time. Thank you.
Are there any further questions? Thank you.
Jane Bennett, Yogan Up. I asked 3 questions last meeting regarding the tip hours being reduced. My third question, and more importantly the response, is missing from the minutes. Could you please tell me why?
Minutes.
Would you like me to tell
That
you
was
what it was?
2 weeks ago, was that?
Yeah.
14th of May.
Can you just, What was the question?
So my third question was, do the residents get a say? And your answer, Tony, was not at this stage.
Yeah.
Something like that. So
Yes.
that's missing from the minutes.
Okay, I will check that and correct that if need be.
And my second question is, earlier this year, I think it was in January, we had an issue with the minutes not reflecting the live stream recording. And given the fact that council meeting minutes are legally required to be accurate, how can the community have any confidence that this is happening, given this has now happened again?
Mr Mayor.
Thanks,
Sorry,
Mr Mayor. So that's not actually correct, Ms Bennett. So Reg 11 states that a summary of the question and a summary of the answer is provided. So that was clearly stated on the night when we discussed that. And I think there were some public questions around that as well. If this one is missing, I'm happy to accept that may have been a mistake, but I will look at that and correct that if need be.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Mr Evel, you have a question?
Good evening, Don Evel from Geograph. In what year did the Building Asset Renewal Reserve change its title to be the Building Reserve, and did the purpose of the reserve change?
I'll take that as on notice.
Beg your pardon?
We'll take that on notice. Sorry, is this loud enough?
Well, it's clearly in the things. Happened in 2024. Question 2. The opening balance of this fund in 23-24 was $3.3 million. And the closing balance in 23-24 was $7.4 million. Now, for what reason was this fund doubled in value in 23-24 when the balance of that fund historically has been consistent in its balance over the last several years?
I'll direct that at Director Pearson.
Happy to answer that, Mr Mayor.
Sure,
So,
okay, thank you.
Mr Evel, obviously the council adopts a budget which transfers money into that reserve for the purposes of which the reserve has a purpose for. And whether the council spends or doesn't spend all of the money on their building asset renewal, if it doesn't spend all of it, it remains in that reserve. So it may be more or less.
Just
Right.
through the chair, just to add to that, and I can't be sure
I
it
can't
was.
hear you, sorry.
So just to add to that, and I can't be sure it was exactly that year, but we have consolidated our reserves over the recent years. So funding from, we had individual building reserves. Funding was consolidated into a centralised building reserve. So that may also be contributing to the increase where funding has been taken from individual building reserves and consolidated into the one.
Could you clarify what building reserves individually were?
Previously we had,
consolidated?
so I'll have to confirm exactly when this happened, but previously we had reserves for the GLC, for instance, which was a separate reserve, and we did consolidate all of those reserves into one reserve.
Okay, right. Question 3. Out of this $7.4 million, $5 million has been diverted to the saltwater debacle. But as stated in the building reserve, the purpose of is to provide funds for major maintenance and capital expenditure and requirements associated with the renewal, upgrade
Mr
and
Evel, I'd just
replacement
like
of
you to
existing building assets.
reframe the question without the word debacle, if you may.
Beg your pardon?
I would like you to reframe the question without insinuating.
I'm not
personal
insinuating
opinioning.
anything.
I would
I'm just
request
stating
that you
something. I'm
remove
just
the
stating
word
something.
that.
Thank you very much.
No,
Now, the question
Mr
here is,
Evel, I would
how
like
does
you
the transfer of $5 million
Mr Evel, please, I would like you,
fit the criteria of this reserve fund that was intended for?
Mr Evel, if you could just ask that question again. Thank you.
All right. The question here now is, how does the transfer of the $5 million to the saltwater fit the criteria for which this reserve was intended for?
Thank you.
And that's what it was stated was that it's
Thank you
for
for your
upgrading
question.
and replacing existing assets.
Mr. CEO.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. So that was authorised by a council resolution, I think, at about December last year. I'd have to check the date on that one. So it was authorised through a council resolution.
So other existing assets
Thank you,
are
Mr. Earl. I
funded for
think
money.
your question's been answered.
To
I
alter
said you were
for
more than
saltwater.
welcome to
Is that
contact
correct?
us. Thank you very much.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
it. Thank
For
you.
your very prompt answer. That was lovely. Thank you. Done well tonight.
Okay, are there any further questions from the public? Being no questions, I will now move on to presentations by parties with an interest. We have David Bostock, who's petitioner, talking on item 13.1, the Metricup Yelverton Road, response to the petition. David, you have 5 minutes, and there's a little coloured scheme, so once it goes orange, you've got 1 minute to go. Thank you. We do have a busy night tonight, so I will be keeping on time. Sorry about that.
Probably won't need the 5 minutes. Thank you. So my name is David Bostock. I live at Metricup, and I live at 137 Metricup Yelverton Road, hence our interest in this road and the whole matter of unsealed roads in the council and where they may lead in the future in terms of upgrades. The officer's report is quite comprehensive and sets out all the criteria which are taken into account when a road is considered for sealing. Under those criteria, our road does not meet the requirements. The traffic volume is required to be a minimum 150 vehicles a day, and we don't meet that, and we apparently don't meet whole-of-life costings. And while we understand that, we believe the location of the road west of the highway in the primary tourist triangle in the city area should be considered as having some importance and some weight in these decisions. The governing factor in the whole report seems to be the long-term financial plan, and that seems to be based to a large degree on the market with a wise survey of what the residents and ratepayers of the city deem important. From the outset, I would suggest to you that given the way that survey was carried out and the city divided into 11 areas, the rural area, which comprises somewhere in excess, by the look of the map, of 3/4 of the area, probably has, I don't know, might be lucky to have 1/11 of the population. So the survey and the resulting long-term financial plan is very much based on a populist way of running things. I'd suggest to you that a lot of those areas, they're either urban or they're special rural or certainly lifestyle blocks. So it's along the coastal strip, essentially. I believe that's a deficiency in the way the long-term financial plan's been put together. The current plan allows for road renewal on an existing backlog only, and that includes, I presume, resealing sealed roads as required. In terms of our particular road, the last resheeting in autumn of 2024 was brought forward by 2 years from planned implementation and put in at a cost of $138,000 spread over the 3 kilometres of the road between Metricup and Yelverton roads. The City Works crew has just completed a further resheeting on the southern 1 kilometre of road coming north from Metricup Road, and that's had another coat of gravel on top of the last coat, which was put in only in autumn last year. The specification for this job appears to have been much higher than the previous job, and the gravel applied this time is much thicker. And this reflected in the apparent cost I found in the finance reporting of $120,000 allocated for this 1 kilometre. On that basis, it would seem to bring the rest of the road to the same specification, probably needs a further $240,000. The petition was presented as a request for an immediate seal due to the recurring inadequate maintenance, and we do appreciate maintenance that has been carried out since that date. The works crew generally do an excellent job when they carry out the work. The problem for us has always been the frequency or the infrequency of the work. In terms of the cost of sealing, we're suggesting from the report $3.3 million and approximately at 1.1 per kilometre. The only item I'd query is the maybe need for clearing permits and offset plantings. council has previously shown they do a really good job at putting a sealed road through vegetated road lanes, and not necessarily in straight lines. They're good at getting around trees and making a pretty good road. So I've seen that on Yelverton Road when they did that a few years ago. The 78 kilometres of sealed road in high need of renewal, there are in high need of renewal and a higher priority for reseal and upgrade. It goes on to say, this report, that alternatively, an allocation of additional funding would be required through the long-term financial plan and additional resources needed. And on that basis, our road is not recommended in the next 5 years. Which leads me to a major concern about the whole financial plan. The WA Tomorrow report, which I understand councils take a lot of notice of, talking about population growth, suggests an increase likely from 2021 of 42,000 to around 60,000 in 2036, which is just outside your plan time. And it seems extraordinary that there is a minimal provision for renewal of existing sealed roads. And furthermore, there's no provision for or apparent intention to upgrade a sealed gravel road in the next 10 years. So I'd suggest that the plan needs a serious review.
Thank you, Mr Barstock. I appreciate your time.
I will send a copy to councillors because I'd like to see
Yep.
the last comments because
Sure,
I think they're
sure.
quite important.
No, 5 minutes goes very quickly.
Given that recommendation.
Thank you very much. Cheers. Next, we have Natasha Blefari from the Dunsborough Soccer talking on item 17.1. You have 5 minutes, Natasha.
James has come up now too, so we can go straight after if that helps.
Good evening, councillors. My name is James Sinnall and I speak tonight as both a player and a committee member at the Dunsborough Town Football Club. I'll make the distinction that is the soccer club. Now, when I first heard that the new facilities were coming to Dunsborough, I was genuinely excited and like so many others, I thought, finally, something great is coming. And a space that would support our community, something to be proud of, something that we could build a future on. But then when I saw the actual plan, that excitement quickly turned to disappointment, and that feeling of hope that I had was replaced by something much heavier, and that was dread. It was a bitter blow to realise that the design had been settled, seemingly without meaningful input from the very clubs which would affect the most. Now, to say I was let down would be an understatement, and to say that I expected better would also be an understatement. Now, the current proposal to place a shared pavilion near the basketball courts simply doesn't work for soccer or many other codes. The pavilion is completely disconnected from the pitches. There's no nearby amenities, no storage, no shelter, no canteen, and crucially, no plan to secure the extra space soccer urgently needs to keep up with its explosive growth, particularly among junior and female players. Now, this is not a minor inconvenience. It's actually been a fundamental failure in planning, and what you've proposed is not fit for a sporting precinct. Now, and yet, what we're asking for isn't excessive. It's not demanding. It's simply what is already being done in other parts of the southwest and Perth, and we need facilities that are fit for purpose and that meet the real-world needs of our sport and that reflect the scale and diversity of participation in Dunsborough today. And just because other clubs in other towns have had to settle for less doesn't mean that we should repeat that same mistake. Now, that's not leadership and it's not progress either. And I don't believe anyone in this room wants to set Dunsborough's future on that kind of path. Now, there's something else I wanted to say and something that I believe that we often teach to our own children, and that's the easy way is not always the right way. Doing the right thing, the meaningful thing, is rarely the most convenient option. Now, it'd be easy to press ahead, easy to dismiss the growing voices of concerns, and easy to stick with the current plans and just hope the noise dies down. But deep down, I think we all know that's not the way forward. So we have an opportunity today to do better, to listen, to reset, to create something that genuinely reflects and serves this whole community, not just for today, but the decades that lie ahead. We vote to support the motion to, again, revisit the proposal, and let's get this done the right way, not the easy way, the right way. Thank you. I'll now hand over to Tash.
Good evening. As you know, my name's Tash Blafari. I'm a proud mum of 3 kids who play both soccer and basketball, and I'm the elected president of Dunsborough Soccer, now a unified club representing close to 1,000 members across all age groups. I speak tonight not just on behalf of our club, but for the hundreds of local families, volunteers and players who continue to show up rain, wind and winter for the sport they love. We're here to talk about the future of Dunsborough Lake Sporting Precinct, and let me be clear, we fully support the motion presented by Councillor McNish. It offers a genuine opportunity to consider new information, including space to the east of the current precinct and an addition to the existing and proposed infrastructure. We acknowledge the efforts that have taken place to establish the Northern Pavilion design to date, and we recognise the needs of the other user groups. We certainly don't want to take anything away from that, but acknowledge our needs are not aligning. As James said, the pavilion plan just falls short for our club. It disconnects the building from the grass space activities, places spectators dangerously behind the goals with no proximity to shelter, toilets, storage or canteen facilities. There's no vehicle access around the site, all essentials for winter sport like ours, played in the rain, week in, week out, from under 6s right through to seniors. The pavilion's design and location disconnects our essential facilities from the pitches, and in doing so, disconnect our players and families and the club operations from the support they rely on. It's been suggested that we should reorientate our main pitch to accommodate the site. This approach not only fails to comply with the requirements set out by the Australian sporting codes, it also impacts the number of junior pitches available to us and still does not address the need for appropriate shelter, storage, canteen or amenities in close proximity to our junior pitches. Over the past 3 years, I've been deeply involved in this process.
Got 10 seconds left.
Oh, really? I thought we had 5 minutes each.
No, this is one deposition.
Okay.
Sorry.
I'm sorry, I'm going to be a little bit longer.
Well,
Despite
I'm gonna
frustrations
give you 30 seconds, but
Despite frustrations on all sides, our club's voice has consistently been overlooked. Every piece of feedback we provided on pavilion design was dismissed. We were forced to lodge a freedom of information request just to access basic site planning documents. A petition signed by 500 community members remains unanswered, even after 6 months. We've even got our own designer to come up with collaborative options that consider everyone's requirements.
Natasha, I'm really sorry, but I've got a lot of people speaking
yes, I know.
today.
We're very near the end. Thank you very much. Appreciate your time.
We even got our own designer to come up with collaborative options to consider everyone's requirements, which was dismissed and communicated with council officers. Our juniors are the heart and soul of our club. We've had so much increase in growth, and one of the most basic aspects, the operational plan, we have asked for information on time and time again.
Thank you very much. Sorry, Natasha. Sorry, I've got to stop. I'm sorry. Thank you. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Just trying to be fair with everyone here tonight. We have spoken. Thank you. Thank you very much. Cheers. I would appreciate a little bit of order. Sorry, but this is the standing orders are about respect. No questions. No questions, sorry. Next we have James Cross and Travis Flassam from the Oilers. You have 5 minutes as an interested party to present. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Good evening, councillors. I'm Travis Fassam. I've been a resident and business owner in Dunsborough for the past 15 years. I've been involved with basketball in the area as a player, a coach and committee member for roughly 12 years. First of all, I'd like to say I support the further feasibility on the construction of indoor basketball courts, netball courts, multi-purpose facility at the precinct. I'm here tonight as a community member and the organiser of the Dunsborough Oilers Basketball League. The Oilers started off as a weekly, unorganised social basketball game, which fastly turned into us joining the Busselton Amateur Basketball Association. This was a point, like, we got together as a point. A lot of these guys were struggling with exercise and mental health. and therefore we moved into a more inclusive way of reaching out to people. About 10 years ago, we decided to start our own winter league. We started with 5 teams, which has now grown to 11 teams, and we're playing 5 games in 4 time slots up to 9:20 at night, where we have year 11 and 12 students playing who obviously are going to school the next day, very tired, but their involvement in sport is important. This current season, we have 10 father-sons playing in our league, building the bond between father and son, not at home, but as man to man. We are looking to build also women. Women who can also have the same advantages as what all the guys in our league have had. We are strong supporters of the community. We have raised God knows how much amount of money for local family members who have been struggling. One very close to my heart, a mate of mine, his wife passed away. We did a quiz night for him. We raised $22,000 for him. Our winter grand finals can sometimes get up to 100 people. So if you have seen NCC, how do we fit 100 people into that stadium? 2 of those grand finals, we have raised money for people who have lost family members. All I'm asking, and I've been asking this for now over 10 years, the only way basketball can progress is for indoor basketball courts. And if we don't have that, how are we supposed to keep the kids active? Local government often spruiks act, belong, commit. How are kids supposed to act, belong, commit when there's nowhere for them to play?
My name's James Cross. I'm a Dunsborough resident, and for full disclosure, I'm also the Vice President of the soccer club, but I'm actually here speaking about basketball as well. And the plan put forward in this sporting plan 2020 to 2030, the very #1 priority actually included reference to indoor courts at the Dunsborough Lake Sporting Precinct, which then references point 6, which priority 6 was the indoor courts. And then the draft plan of that precinct came out and it was magically gone. It wasn't on there at all. So we support this motion because all we're asking is that you halt the process. It's not going to be a long process now, and see the feasibility of the courts. If they are feasible, we want to make sure that the pavilion doesn't get built so that later on someone says, oh, that's half a metre too wide, we can't put courts in. So it really just proper planning. There's been so many holes in this process up until now. There's interested parties who haven't declared. It's this point, basketball loses. Even under this current proposal, a canteen and club room for basketball, all it does is add costs to their running costs that they'd never had before. For us personally, as a development league, all we want is the ability for everyone to participate. And these courts aren't about competition level for the community, they're for community use. And that's really lacking. And that whole precinct, no one is currently winning the way that is because they're all squashed in with 6 months of the year for some of the clubs. So it's just really a plea to say, put it on a hold for a short period and let's look at the options for everyone as a collective without kind of dropping people off.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. And just commend you on some of the work you're doing there. Thank you, Travis. Next speaking, we have John Ricciardone. Ricciardone. Sorry, John Ricciardone. Apologise, John. From the Dunsborough Basketball. And again, you've got 5 minutes if you could. I appreciate that.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you.
Councillors, staff members, we appreciate the opportunity to present to you regarding this. I'll keep it succinct. My name's John Ricciardone. I'm the president of the Dunsborough Basketball Club. Our committee came together recently to decide if we as a club would support the motion presented today. We cast a vote regarding the motion. The club has voted strongly, nearly majority-wise, that we believe the pavilion should move forward with the current design. The City of Busselton have the support of the Dunsborough Basketball Club to continue with the development of the Dunsborough Lake Sporting Pavilion. Until new courts are built in Dunsborough, the club will always advocate and champion almost any development that delivers Dunsborough with new indoor courts. This isn't a new need that's been identified, and as you've seen today from others, clearly there's a lot of passion regarding this, which is outstanding. But it's been stated within the city's own strategic plans and roadmaps for some time. However, we are here to show our support for both our club and the community clubs for the wider need of a pavilion to progress without delay. Being part of a community means working together. As a club, we believe we've done that. We recently sat down with the other clubs, we listened, and we wanted to understand their needs. We understand this isn't an easy decision. Lots of people are passionate, and we commend that. But the Dunsborough Basketball Club support the additional needs to assist clubs like basketball in growing for their members. But as it stands, we stated we will propose that we support the continuation development of the existing plans for the Dunsborough Sporting Pavilion. Thank you for your time, everyone.
Thank you very much.
Okay, my name is Amanda Cutler. I'm from the Dunsborough Basketball Club on the committee. So Dunsborough Basketball Club have been actively involved in the development of the Dunsborough Lake Sporting Precinct. Our committee have attended nearly every meeting held in relation to this long-term project over 5+ years. The construction of the 4 outdoor courts has been very beneficial for our club and has provided much-needed courts for training for our 91 teams over the past 3 seasons. Whilst having a fantastic place to train and hold community events, what has been missing is storage for our equipment, toilets for our players, a canteen to bring our community together, and a meeting room for our dedicated committee. A place for Dunsborough Basketball Club's 700 members to call home. The pavilion in its current design will mean the courts and the ovals can now start to be used as they were intended. They're currently used by dog walkers all the time. We are grateful to councillors that the design was accepted in its current format, which means Dunsborough Basketball Club will have a canteen, a meeting room, storage and toilets adjacent to the outdoor courts, which we've never had before. Indoor courts are desperately needed in our city, and with the size of our population in the city of Busselton, they are required in both Busselton and Dunsborough. We have a population big enough to have, we shouldn't have 2 towns competing against each other for indoor courts. Presenting a motion to explore the option to enclose 2 of our outdoor courts isn't what our club needs. We require access to these 4 outdoor courts for training requirements, and with lighting already constructed, to now take that down would just be, ludicrous. Our committee do not want to see new infrastructure removed to enable a roof cover. What is required is a proper indoor stadium. A place for 4 indoor courts adjacent to the outdoor courts would be the best location. That's going to bring all of our clubs together. There were always 4 courts to the north of the outdoor courts located on the plans in the early stages of the consultation process. In the area that's currently, it's treed, but not really badly. So this is something our club are willing to work with the city to achieve. But we don't want to lose our 4 outdoor courts in the process. But for today's motion, Dunsborough Basketball Club do not support the motion to pause the pavilion project. We support the pavilion to proceed to go out to tender and construction, and we look forward to working with city officers on the finer details of this project. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is Mark Delaney here? Delane? Sorry, Mark, you were hidden away there.
Evening, Mayor, councillors, once again. I'll keep mine really short as well. We also had a committee meeting on the back of last week's briefing session. Our position is still very much the same. We support the clubs that are going in there that we share membership with. We also acknowledge that whilst admittedly from soccer, they haven't been involved in the process, as we said last week, we still support their needs in our community. So whilst we don't support the motion, we certainly support some of the points in that motion around the need to investigate soccer's needs. And we've always stated collectively that there should be a space for them in that sporting precinct. Equally, we can't deny the fact of the need for indoor courts for basketball as they're represented as well. So we're against the motion as it stands, but would certainly support an alternative that saw the pavilion continue, but on the proviso that there was some consideration, genuine consideration given to soccer's needs, as they've now identified to the east, but not at the expense of the pavilion and then obviously the indoor courts. So that's our position. The key is to activate the green space and get the dogs off.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That concludes the presentations by a party with an interest. Oh, sorry, no, I've written Matt off. Sorry, Matt, do you wish to speak? Sorry, Matt.
Sorry, who's delaying representing?
Football club. Football club. Matt Petty is Dunsborough Cricket.
Yeah. Thanks, everyone. Dunsborough Cricket do not support the motion brought forward by Councillor McNish. We agree that the pavilion should continue full steam ahead without delay. We do also support soccer in their endeavour to get a pavilion that suits them going forward, because that's what they need, and that should be looked at 100%, along with basketball to indoor courts for them, which they have needed for many, many years. Cricket's always tried to compromise, because we're never going to have everything perfect out there, we understand that. We've tried to work with soccer, basketball, netball, to get something that suits us all, but that hasn't happened without trying. We've tried for many, many years. So we think that we should just forge ahead with this, because the majority of the groups need this pavilion, and then that green space needs to be activated, because it's just a waste of space. The lights are now in there. We hope that it can just continue forward as it is. We're all passionate about our pavilion and our space and our home, I guess. Barnard is built in Busselton, and it's not an ideal place to play. A lot of the cricket sports there don't like it, and it doesn't work for them. So that's why we're so passionate, as well as the other sports, to get something that works for us, because we know that it's our livelihood for the clubs. They need to make money. They need to be, they need a place to call home, and I think that's probably where this all sort of comes out to it a little bit with that. But we hope the councillors can take some leadership and agree to build this and continue with the plans. And without delay, and then look at the other clubs' needs in perspective from that.
Thank you, Matt. Cheers, appreciate it. That concludes presentations with the party. The CEO has approved the deputation by Aaron Lohman and Tim Howling from Cornerstone on behalf of John Forrest on item 12.2. And you have 10 minutes.
Excuse me, Mr Mayor. Given that I'll be declaring a financial interest in this item, I will leave the room during this deputation.
Thank you. No, Councillor Cox left the room. We'll just wait for Councillor Cox to leave. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor and Councillors, for the opportunity to speak tonight. My name's Aaron Lohman. I'm from Cornerstone Town Planning here on behalf of John Forrest to speak to you on the town planning matters relating to item 12.2 on the agenda, which is the draft local planning scheme number 22. There's three issues that I would like to discuss tonight, and those relate to John's properties, which are at Lot 3 Ludlow Park Road, Lot 11 and Lot 237. They don't unfortunately have street addresses associated with them. The three issues that I'd like to talk to you about is the reservation of Lot 237, Special Control Area 8 and Special Control Area number 2. Lot 237 is proposed to be reserved under the draft LPS 22 for a state forest. And I acknowledge in providing this presentation or deputation to you tonight that part of Lot 27 is reserved for recreation under the current scheme, with a small portion that is not and is zoned rural. Based on available aerial photos dating back to 1970, it's clear that the land has been cleared and used for agricultural pursuits. We would therefore question in the first instance whether the current recreation reserve is appropriate. But turning our minds to the proposed reservation under the state forest under draft LPS 22, it would seem that the cleared nature and the use of the site previously for agricultural pursuits would not necessarily align with the state forest reserve. There is a few scattered trees in a parkland nature on the site, but predominantly we don't associate the vegetation or the use of the land with state forest. We would therefore ask that the council consider removing the reservation from the site prior to proceeding further with the draft scheme. Turning to Special Control Area 8, as the council would be aware, Special Control Area 8 will prohibit future applications for extractive industry on the site. What we would ask is council remove the prohibition to allow that use to be approvable. That is, the use would be an A use of the site if the Special Control Area was taken away. As council would understand, an A use means that approval requires the exercise of discretion by council. It is not a fait accompli or approval is not guaranteed. We are aware of the non-conforming use rights as commented on in the workshop notes which were attached to the agenda. These are limiting, especially for industry extractive, given the campaign nature of the use of these operations, i.e. limestone extraction can be demand-based. In terms of Special Control Area 8, would ask council to consider the following. Extraction activities have been in some time with approvals granted in 2014 and 2018. Such approvals would not have been granted if the use was unacceptable on environmental grounds. The environmental grounds for Special Control Area Special Control Area 8 are set out on page 52 of the council agenda, which relate to the sensitive nature of the surrounding uses. As the council would be aware, that's predominantly the wetlands to the west of the site, which are distant from the extractive industry area. Draft LPS 22 presents a fundamental shift from being a use that's approvable in the zone, obviously discretionary at this stage, to a use that is not capable of approval, with what appears to be no specific changes to the circumstances of the site or surrounds. John currently has a current application with the city awaiting acceptance for lodgement, subject to additional information that has been requested by the city. This would then allow for the application to be considered. In terms of the environmental impact, further information was requested on groundwater levels, acid sulphate soil, surface water management and rehabilitation plans. None of the requested information is suggesting that the use is fundamentally unacceptable. We would also note that in considering the application, it is open for the city to refer the application to a number of state and environmental authorities on the presumption that those environmental matters relating to the use needed to be explored by those agencies. I'll quickly comment that a biannual audit by the city was undertaken in 2022 with a letter of 22nd of February determining that the operation was compliant with the approvals granted. Finally, I would like to make the point that the extractive industry is a temporary use of the land, with it being returned to an agricultural use thereafter. To conclude, all Mr Forrest is asking for is an opportunity to lodge a development application to be considered for extractive industry once LBS 22 comes into effect. Given the previous approval granted, this would be a logical outcome. The planning and environmental framework are the relevant instruments to consider whether extractive industry is appropriate on the land. We ask that SC8 be removed from the land to allow the use to be considered, including the submission of environmental support reports to support the application to address the concerns raised in the agenda report. With regards to the reservation of 237 as state forest, we ask for this to be removed. We also ask that the council reconsider the wetlands, proposed wetland SCA2 over the site, given there is already environmental mechanisms able to protect those wetlands. And thank you for your time.
Mr Mayor, do you wish me to proceed? Yes. Right. Tim Howling, I'm solicitor, and I'm speaking against the proposed inclusion within your town planning scheme of a special control area over predominantly and perhaps even exclusively the land owned by Mr John Forrest. He operates a limestone quarry over that site, a rare commodity, as has been recognised by state planning policy, basic raw materials policy. It is stated in your agenda, which you've got before you, at page 45, that your proposed amendments for your scheme is because it's said by the WAPC, the Department of Planning, Lands and Heritage, that your scheme has become redundant and supersedes the state planning framework. Now, that could only be the state planning policies and perhaps the local planning regulations 2015. There is nothing in those documents that justify a scheme amendment that focuses almost exclusively on Mr Forrest's land. Nothing in those documents to justify what you're proposing tonight. I have 7 points. My first is this: there is no justification under the state planning framework. In fact, to the opposite, the basic raw materials policy says that you must ensure that raw materials are properly able to be extracted for use. Why? Because they are rare. Secondly,
Mr Howling, sorry, you're not in a court here, but I would like it if you could tone the language and your attitude down a tiny bit.
Secondly, the suggestion at page 51 is that there would be a state planning control area.
Mr Howling, I'm sorry, but I'm the presiding member here, as much as you like it or not.
What would you like me to do, Mr Mayor?
Curb the tonality of your voice, please. Tone it down.
The spoke development area that is referred to at page 51 of your scheme, there is no reason for why you would have something which is so bespoke that it only refers to Mr John Forrest's land. The reason why that wouldn't be the case is because you can do that through appropriate development control. That is the usual way within which you carry out your scheme proposals or regulation of land use. Zoning that relates to one parcel of land, with the greatest of respect, is entirely inappropriate. Thirdly, your own local planning policy states at theme 2 this: protect basic raw materials, minerals and resources, energy resources. Now that's your planning scheme strategy. That's the guiding document for how you will develop your own schemes. That was adopted by this council in 2020. Now, having been adopted, it guides for the next 25 years how you're going to approach matters. But instead, what's now being proposed is a scheme amendment that focuses on Mr Forrest's land. That's the third point. The fourth point that I wish to make is that wetlands are scientific. It requires a lot of work and they are necessarily uncertain and unspecified until you undertake all of the work that's necessary to determine the extent of a wetland. It is not as easy as you might think, and until you do the work, you've got no proper basis on which you can justify the extent of the wetland other than the wetland database and mapping, which is often and usually wrong. The fifth point that I wish to make, and the elephant in the room, Mr Mayor, is that, yes, I did represent Mr Forrest against the unsuccessful prosecution by the City of Busselton in which it spent thousands.
Okay, Mr Howling, this is not relevant to this item. You know that. You know that. Your time is up.
It's directly relevant because it's capricious.
The speaker is off. The speaker is off.
It's the reason for why this local government is...
I would ask you to take your seat, Mr Howling. I would suggest you take your seat. Saying yes, sir. Thank you. You've had your time. I will not be spoken to like this in the chamber. Thank you. And I would expect better. Thank you. And don't try and stare me out.
Don't stare me down, Mr Mayor.
I'm not.
You're the person with the interest who declared it.
Okay, another accusation. Thank you. Right, moving on. Item 8.1 is that the minutes of the ordinary council meeting held on the 14th of May 2025 be confirmed as true and correct record. Sorry, I'll just wait for Councillor Cox to return. I do apologise. Thank you.
Mr Mayor, I'm happy to move the minutes under the proviso that Ms Bennett's question 3 is placed in the minutes.
Certainly. Do I have a seconder for that motion? With that amendment, Councillor Love. Is there any opposition? Being no opposition, I put the motion. All those in favour? Motion carried 9-0.
Mr Mayor, I would like to move I would like to move an item forward according to Standing Orders Clause 5.7.
Certainly.
That we move item 17.1 for the next item. Thank you.
Yes, as there seem to be a number of people in the gallery, that would make sense. So I will now move on to item 17.1. I'll just give staff a chance to... We now move on to item 17.1, notice of motion recasting of the Dunsborough Lakes Playing Field Sporting Pavilion project. This motion is put forward by Councillor Andrew McNeish and will require an absolute majority. Councillor McNeish, do you wish to put your motion?
Thank you, sir. I'll put it as... I've lost my voice over the last few days talking to so many people. Would have been nice for a little bit of notice, Councillor Kennedy, but I'll put the motion as you've requested.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Seconded, Councillor Ryan. Is there opposition? There being opposition, would you please speak to your motion, Councillor McNeish?
Thank you. I'll try and observe the 5-minute limit. It's been applied here today. So I'll, rather than speak freely and openly from as a sporting member would, with nowhere to hide, I'll read so I don't miss anything out. So submitting this motion has been an interesting exercise. Thankfully, it has generated much needed discussion with the club executives and more broadly, and it's been very helpful to me and hopefully the council. I'm pleased to see them have the chance to speak directly to the elected members in the chamber, something I wished the council had embraced when it had the opportunity 14 months ago. The motion is now firmly with the elected members who have been elected to represent the interests of current and future residents and ratepayers. This is a far bigger group than 4 clubs. However, I don't for one moment downplay the importance of striving for the best outcome for the use of city resources. I acknowledge the staff have been working to the council resolutions, but in our collective oversight role, to me, a moment has now been reached to pause. And I will be also foreshadowing some amendments when I conclude. In our growing sports situation, we have more than 2 parties, constrained space, no immediate obvious alternative solution, but no clear rules. No management agreement, no draft leases, no operating plan, no cost contribution estimates, nothing. I look at the farmers market and wonder why that works so well, because it's been designed to work well. Okay, so Councillor Kennedy, you raised the spectre of financial responsibility recently, and that is a good thing to raise in this chamber. I'm now raising the spectre of strategic decision-making responsibility. We do not want to create a white elephant. We need kids off the street, a pathway to discipline and applied motivation and group dynamics, real-world learning, the rite of passage to adulthood, happy club ownership, happy clubs. If the result of a month's...
Excuse me, Mr Mayor, point of order.
Sorry, Councillor Manish, please take your seat. What is your point of order?
Do we have to move a revocation motion prior to Councillor McNish's notice of motion being considered, given that his notice of motion is contrary to a council decision? Do we have to consider a notice of motion to revoke first, prior to the actual notice of motion?
Is the motion.
So there's a foreshadowed change. So this is a revocation and change that you are speaking to, Councillor McNish. It has been signed by 2 other councillors, so we are currently in debate on that item.
So not required to be considered by council?
And that will be included in the minutes, so
Okay,
not
thank you,
required, no.
Mr Mayor.
Thank you. Sorry, your time has been paused. You may continue. Thank you, Councillor McNish.
A good opportunity for me to reflect on what we heard from the presentations. We've got 2 pavilions, 2 more indoor courts by clearing trees. Anyway, a bit more activated space and some unresolved matters. Well, nothing in that contravenes what I'm proposing. Okay, it seems everyone's looking after the interests of everyone else, but not according to everyone else. So I'll leave you with that. This is the guts of it. Someone said to me, a passionate person, why would you vote against the motion? We just get on and build the pavilion. Okay, we've been 5 years of complaining, we have gone around in circles, let's just build it. And my response was this: if you think I'm going to vote to spend $6.5 million just because some people are jaded and disillusioned, think again. In my role, I cannot be so financially and strategically irresponsible with other people's money in voting to construct a pavilion that has come out of a process that you, this person, complain has been frustrating and unresponsive without a recent needs analysis, shows no evidence of any management plan apportioning roles and responsibilities and costs and optimising returns from best practice operations, makes zero reference to any logical association with future indoor courts, the most needed sport item short term, is not unanimously supported amongst the breadth of users. It has already gone over budget even before going to the market, and has been formulated on the basis of 5 or 6 year old strategic thinking that has zero comprehension, zero, of the district level sports facility vision the council has started to reserve fund in its long-term financial plan. That is just so important. How can you make a decision at this level without understanding the broader, bigger, very expensive context for your most important activity in the Shire as rated by the community? So I'm sorry, I just can't vote to build this pavilion as it stands with so many unanswered issues and so easily an opportunity to get the people who clearly have passionate input, know how these facilities run and want to be run and want to be regarded as their second home, to motivate them from generations of volunteerism, in the room with these elected members with some information provided by the CEO that would take 2 or 3 weeks, is whatever his staff can come up with in 2 or 3 weeks to inform that process, because it has to happen quickly, because I don't want to be part of delaying anything, this issue to be fully discussed, spend $6.5 million, any longer than another 4 or 5 weeks.
You have 15 seconds remaining if you wish to foreshadow.
So I'm foreshadowing that I'm going to clarify this motion by pausing rather than ceasing. Don't want to waste any work, just pause the process rather than cease it, and give the CEO a clearer implementation sentence because he thought there was some ambiguity in the words, and I've got that up on the screen.
Okay, so we have an alternate that we can...
So I'm moving my motion, and I'm foreshadowing, or I want to move an amendment.
Would you, just to clarify, Councillor McNish, are you seeking the consent of the seconder to alter your motion, or...?
Yes, to clarify the motion, if I need to move that amendment.
Councillor Ryan, do you... Sure.
I'm happy to accept that, but I'd also like to move a further amendment, if I may.
2 seconds. Okay, Councillor Ryan, you're agreeing to this as it is, and this is the current motion in front of us.
Yes.
When you speak, you can put forward an amendment at the time.
Just for clarification, sir, we're dealing now with the amendment.
If this has been approved, yes.
Yeah, thank you.
Councillor Ryan?
I'd like to foreshadow the amendment with a point 2. The above information be provided by the CEO to a workshop to be independently facilitated as soon as practicable, and the presidents of each of the stakeholder sports be invited to participate, either in part or full duration of the workshop. The workshop shall consider strategic ramifications for sport and recreation in Dunsborough and the district.
Okay, well, do you have that in writing that you can send to governance?
I do. Who am I sending it to, Mr Mayor?
Governance or just governance at? Yeah.
Sorry, through the chair, if I could, so just to clarify there, council, there's already a point 2, so I'm assuming it's to fall after that, so that it's a point 3.
Yes.
I'm sorry, Mr Mayor, while you're going through this, I need another leave of absence. I'll be back in a minute.
Sure.
Though, actually, Councillor McNish, you will need to... I'm just wondering whether this negates the original intent of this motion, and also you will need to approve it.
If you're asking me the question, from what I heard and the glimpse of what I've seen, it adds to the motion, it doesn't negate the motion, and adding to the motion is a viable amendment. An admissible amendment.
Thank you. Well, I'll need a seconder then for that.
I'll second.
Seconded, Councillor McNish. Is there any opposition to this amendment? which is the inclusion of point 3. No opposition? Okay. Councillor Ryan, you can speak to this.
Can I just confirm I'm speaking to the amendment?
Sorry, just 2 seconds. Yeah, being no opposition, we'll put it to the vote. All those in favour of the amendment? All those against? It's lost 4-3, or 3-4. It's their choice. Sure. I can't control that. Okay. So now, Councillor Ryan, you can speak to the motion in front of you.
Thank you. Councillors, here we are again. In March 2024, that was 14 months ago, I moved a motion to have a summit. That was literally thrown out. And here we are again with a very unhappy sporting community. Councillors, the council plan in the Mayor's opening comments on the newly adopted plan states our vision is bold: to conserve our natural environment while supporting investments that drive, sustain responsible growth and opportunities. How is the current plan sustainable and responsible? And he goes on, together we will create a future that not only meets the needs of today but anticipates the aspirations of tomorrow. Really? Is this what crafting our future looks like? Meeting the aspirations of whom, I ask? The council plan also states that to construct a pavilion at Dunsborough Lakes is going to cost $3.214577. That's just 3.2 million. This is now double, and we are told it does not meet the needs of the 3 of the 4 clubs, except cricket, who have been given everything they want, despite the fact that there will be a lighting post in their way while they're viewing. Netball. Of the other groups in the 4 clubs, netball already has training courts and a purpose-built facility in Busselton, but they needed storage and they needed a canteen for the twice-a-year fundraiser that they're going to do. There is 2 canteens and a bar in this facility. Basketball. In the response to the Otian consultation, I noted the comments were 70 basketball teams, 70. There's kids playing late into the evening. Even my neighbours' kids are playing late into the evening when they should be in bed. I believe our CEO plays late into the evening as well. There is no management plan. How much is going to be charged for insurance, water or power? If you go on the basis of the Barnard Park, Beauvale now has concerts at Barnard Park, so they can pay for the facilities there. We're going to have concerts in this new Dunsborough Oval to pay for the facilities. I wonder how the neighbours will feel about that. Soccer. Soccer have always been touted as the baddies in all this, but I'd like to show you, in 2018 there was a plan drawn up for the oval we talk about now. It has 2 AFL ovals and a facility in the middle, right? But then some bright spark decided to put the car park in, and that literally threw the AFL facility out the window. Further, the Otium plan, or the document we received from Otium that's available online, the community were consulted. There is, on page 35, a notation, do not fence. This is the oval that soccer are playing on now, soccer and cricket, and it's my understanding that football would like to take that facility and put a fence around it. So, Dunsborough community, be aware. Soccer, On this list that we were provided for the timelines, soccer were told that they could stay in the facilities that they are now. They could stay. So that's why they stopped going to all the meetings that were being had, because they were getting so frustrated, they were never getting anything that they wanted. Yet this timeline shows that soccer just didn't engage. They did engage, they tried desperately to engage, but gave up because they were so frustrated. Councillor Love last week told us about the votes that there is in AFL. Yes, we are getting close to an election, Councillor Love.
Excuse me, point of order. Relevant
Please.
because I...
Sorry, 2 seconds. Councillor Ryan, please take your seat. Councillor Love, what is your point of order?
I guess it would be imputing motive and relevance as well, because I never said anything about votes last week. That was a member that came and spoke to us.
Yeah, I tend to agree. So,
So relevance, maybe?
Yeah, well,
Well, if I'm
Councillor
allowed
Ryan,
to continue, I can...
Councillor Ryan, if you would retract that statement, because I believe it to be untrue as well, so
I retract it.
thank you very much.
Yes, we are getting close to an election, but I will not be held to ransom because AFL wants soccer and cricket off the current playing fields for them to build their utopia there, taunting both teams constantly to just hurry up and move so they can snaffle the ground. What makes AFL so special? It's an important sport, but there are so many other important sports as well. But I'd suggest to you that the many people in Dunsborough that are listening to the fact that we have gone 2 times over the current budget to satisfy one user group is unfortunate, and I for one won't be putting my name to a plan for $6.5 million. And I suggest that the community have had an absolute gutsful of not being listened to. And they are hyper-vigilant about the amount of money that we agree to. We did hear that the Performing Arts Centre was a fixed-price contract, and so...
Councillor Ryan, your time is up. Thank you.
Councillors, I urge you to vote for this motion.
Thank you. Speaker against? Councillor Candy.
I didn't think I was going to get it. I speak against the motion because it says to continue what has already been an exhaustive consultation period. It further delays any implementation in search for the perfect solution. The original motion here is sudden, complex, it skips basic research and preparation and jumps straight into another development. And we haven't even seen these alternatives until 5 minutes ago. So I'm very reluctant to vote for it. But I'll listen to the debate. I am for continuing with the current pavilion development in its northern position as directed by Council in March 2024. I'm mindful that soccer and cricket have been earmarked for these ovals. I'm not sure what the history was, but this is what we have now, and this is the decision that we need to make it on. The new information revealed since that decision is a petition based on the previously known issue to move the pavilion to the midway line and consideration of indoor courts. And so this is an opportunity to consider whether the previous decision could be changed. So putting on my permaculture hat on, it is good to design from patterns to details. The big patterns have been identified with the consultation in the sports recreational facilities strategy. And it gives us a massive scope across the region from Bunbury to Augusta Margaret River. It gives us the scope in our district of Busselton and our sub-districts, Busselton, Vass and Dunsborough. From there, we zoom in and we master plan areas, gathering the elements required to allow the functions of that system. Bit of a mouthful, but I'll explain. So, for example, this is in order of importance. An oval element allows for the function of soccer, cricket, and also dogs. A toilet, change room, and storage element are self-explanatory. The lighting tower element allows for later games. A function room element allows for the club to come together. A canteen for food and drink, and a bar is for alcohol. When designing these elements, we must consider we have finite resources and we should try to get a best fit. We need to acknowledge the law of diminishing returns and not get stuck in analysis paralysis. The pavilion, canteen and bar in the middle of the ground is a function that must be dismissed. Consideration of future indoor courts adds excessive complexity at the end of the design process, and the reality is that the sooner the pavilion project is complete, we can focus on indoor courts and the district GLC and the many other priorities across the district that are listed in this. It's best to integrate as much as possible, creating multi-use spaces. A great example is the Dunsborough District's Country Club. Multiple buildings are a huge expense. They reduce reserves and it's detrimental to the greater community, and users suffer higher management costs. I'm also aware of concerns with how the facility will be managed and the other things, and whilst there should be consideration given to this, it is at the detailed end of designing from patterns to details. Noticing I'm running out of time, can I request an extension of time in
You've got a
clause
minute
8.11?
still. You've got a minute still.
Yeah,
to
but
go.
I don't think I'll probably need another minute on top of that. No?
You can request an extension.
Can I request an extension?
Well, I'd wait till the
London-
end of your 5 minutes
someone
and you're
like second it?
wasting another 15 seconds, so I'll give you another 15 seconds, that's it.
Okay, so this development of the pavilion must go ahead so users can finally realise something. And it isn't the easy way, as was mentioned in the presentations. So in closing, I would like to commend the efforts and persistence of all the clubs to get their favourable outcomes. But we need to close the decision. Let's put that same effort back into the clubs and plan for future expansion where there will be more opportunities. Like after a good game, we should come together and handshake. But I encourage this motion to be voted down. Thank you.
So you could, thank you. Speaker 4. Councillor Lee.
Thank you. There's no question of the importance of community participation and the various existing and future sporting groups in relation to physical health, mental health, connection and community. By voting for this motion, we're not starting from scratch. We're moving forward with valuable information that we can apply to achieve the best possible outcome. There has been considerable input from the community and we need to honour that. The current design does not meet the needs identified by the community as identified in the OTM report in 2022, as well as the numerous other stakeholder consultation efforts, meetings, presentations, emails, letters and petitions. It's not acceptable to have a facility that meets the needs of some but does not meet the needs of most. We must remain committed to developing multi-use sports facilities. Sometimes that takes visionary thinking, exploring of new options and learning from other developments. Need I remind you of what we've experienced with the tennis club? We might not be able to achieve perfection, but we must continually strive for excellence. The impact of proceeding without considering the needs of all user groups and collaboratively reaching consensus is a disconnected community, lack of trust, and the risk of constructing a white elephant. We are fortunate that we have engaged, dedicated, passionate community who are willing to engage and share their experiences, nearly all of whom are volunteers. This is a growing community with multiple new housing developments coming in the next 5 years, and we need to plan for that growth strategically. It would be foolish to go ahead with the current design when we have the opportunity to achieve a better outcome than what is currently presented. We need to future-proof the facility when we know this expected future growth. There are hundreds of different sports that could also become embedded in the community in the future years. The current design was started and has continued without consideration of the council resolution to establish a sport and rec fund for a district facility. The development of the Dunsborough Lakes sporting precinct should be seen as an adjunct to what will be in the future. Without a management plan, sporting groups that will be the primary users of the facility could be left in financially vulnerable positions, and the facility could be at risk of being out of the financial reach of many. Example, Barnard Park. Sporting groups regularly bring their own barbecues to use outside due to the cost associated with using the kitchen. Fortunately, the location of the facility sees it being used for other large events. The DLSP does not have the same luxury. From my recollection, Barnard Park was built for rugby and cricket have told us tonight that the facility is not fit for purpose. Surely we can and must learn from previous mistakes. We were advised that everyone was happy with this design, but clearly that is not the case, as we've seen over the past month as new information has come to hand. And I'll just leave you with this. There has been considerable input from sporting groups, volunteers, city staff and other stakeholders. It's taken a long time, but guess what? We're almost there. Let's not stop at this point. When the going gets tough, the tough dig in, they get their hands dirty, they continue to show up and they commit to finding solutions. So I would urge you to support this motion so that we can continue.
Speaker against. Councillor Cox.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'm looking at this notice of motion. It's extremely convoluted. And as we heard last week during our briefing session, the soccer club had been consulted with regard to this notice of motion, but no other sporting groups had been consulted at that time. If this notice of motion is not successful, Mr Mayor, I would like to foreshadow that I will be also putting up an alternative.
Point of order.
Councillor Cox, please take your seat.
The point of order is imputing motive because when I constructed this notice of motion, I hadn't discussed it with anyone other than a spitball exercise, eating pizza with the CEO and Councillor Ryan. So you can take that remark back. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you, Councillor Mish. If it was relating to prior to the, I will uphold that. So.
I'm just going on when we asked questions of the sporting groups last week, that was their response, so I'm not impudiating it. There are witnesses here that heard the sporting groups.
So you're talking about after the event of the motion coming out?
When after the motion had been released,
yep.
The sporting groups were asked the question and that was their response. It is not my...
Sure. Well, you may continue then, sorry.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. As I said, if this notice of motion is not successful, I would like to put forward another alternative. My alternative will be relating to doing some further work around indoor courts for basketball. My notice of motion will be very, very simple. It certainly will not take on the complexity of Councillor McNish's. I'll just go through the reasons that I don't agree with the points made in this notice of motion. Councillor McNish just said earlier in his debate that he couldn't vote for a new pavilion. Well, actually, in March 2024, Councillor McNish did vote to endorse the northern perimeter location as the preferred location to build the Dunsborough Lakes Sporting Pavilion and to authorise the CEO to proceed to detailed design for the pavilion. So I'm not, she's obviously done a backflip on that previous decision. So Councillor McNish's notice of motion asks for a feasibility for new covered courts incorporating the existing courts. This would appear to me to be contradictory to point G, where it says no permanent facilities to be planned for construction at the freehold Dunsborough playing field site until there has been some kind of master planning or asset management, but it sounds to me like there's to be no permanent facilities to be planned anytime soon. Point 2, design a modest clubhouse facility adjoined to the covered courts. Again, seems to be contradictory to point G, where it says no permanent facilities. Extend the existing playing surface eastwards for another soccer pitch with a mid-pitch pavilion, including lighting to the new pitch. A considerable amount of money has already been spent on lighting on the grassed area for the Dunsborough Lakes precinct. And soccer asking for another pitch. So they're going essentially from 2/3 pitches to 4, but now they want even more pitches. And I note in the consultation that has been ongoing since 2017-19 that they did ask for 4 pitches, which I believe has been incorporated into the precinct. A draft management plan and approval for a mid-pitch pavilion. As far back as 2021, the soccer club were advised that if the pavilion was to be moved to the centre of the development, mid-pitch, as requested, the amount of grass, green space, would be significantly reduced. There is no reason that a main soccer pitch could not be orientated east to west directly in front of the pavilion on match days. The mid-pitch pavilion just takes up too much green space, and that has been under scrutiny for a number of years. Request developers of Dunsborough East to secure an all-weather sport and recreation space in their structure plan. You can't legislatively compel developers to add sports facilities into their structure plans. I would very much doubt that that would be successful. You could suggest it, but I very much doubt that unless they were actually compelled to do it, that they're going to spend money on doing that. No permanent structures to be constructed in the Dunsborough Lakes playing field, only temporary until the entire land holding in this area has been master planned. A master plan of the Dunsborough Ovals and NCC was key area 3, priority 2 of the facility, sport and rec facility strategy, and was conducted in 2022. I already have foreshadowed my alternative, the wording. I haven't foreshadowed the wording.
No, you haven't. I was going to request that at some point.
But I can, if the officers could potentially get the wording up on the screen, I will foreshadow the wording of my alternative. That the council proceed to tender with the current pavilion design, because as Councillor Ryan alluded to, we do have a figure, but we don't have an accurate figure for what the new pavilion will cost. It might cost more than $6 million, it might cost considerably less, and until we go to tender, we don't actually know what the cost of the current design will be. I would also like to request the CEO to schedule a workshop prior to August so that we can investigate whether or not indoor courts can be incorporated into the pavilion design, and request the CEO to pause any further work on the proposed sporting pavilion until strategic priorities have been reviewed.
Thank you,
in the outlined in.
So that's your foreshadowed
Motion
there. Thank you very much.
Therefore, that I will be voting against Councillor McNish's notice of motion and foreshadowing that I will withdraw. Thank you.
Speaker 4.
Yep.
Councillor Beecroft.
Sorry, I have a ticklish throat. I have to keep drinking and soothe my throat, so bear with me. Okay. To me, this is simple. I'm a big advocate of sports, particularly team sports in young or the youth. They are, as it's already been discussed today, vital for the development of our community. What we are considering doing is providing a sporting facility that is going to have probably a 50-year legacy with limited funds on a limited space. I think we owe it to the community to proceed with a little bit of caution and engage those members of the community that have not been engaged. We are Councillor McNish has made an amendment to his notice of motion that allows for a workshop, and it also allows for a restricted extension rather than stopping the process altogether. So I think, considering what's available to us and the needs of the community, well, I think we need to just pause, use a measured, sensible approach to what has to be done, engaging with the leaders of the various clubs to have the best outcome. No, it will not be perfect, but we can negotiate with the clubs the best outcome for all. I wish we could produce the perfect sporting facility for everybody, but we can't. We can only do what we can do with what we have. I've received, or I've been contacted by many members of the community in support of this notice of motion. I think it's incumbent upon us to listen to the community. We have been voted or elected by the community to represent them. The community has said to me to support this motion, so I'll be voting for it. Just the fact that some of the councillors are arguing points on this notice of motion, to me, is evidence that this project needs to be paused, even for a short period of time, to iron out any crinkles, for want of a better word. I don't know that I've got a great deal more to add that hasn't already been said. I think this is a very, very, very important notice of motion. It has a large impact on the community, and will have a large impact on the community for many years. Let's just give ourselves an extra few weeks to get it right in consultation with the persons of interest. I encourage the councillors to vote in favour of this motion. I think it's very sensible. Thank you.
Thank you. Speaker against? Councillor Love.
Firstly, I feel I must address a critical issue regarding transparency. During last week's agenda briefing, Councillor McNish stated he would provide further clarification and refinement to his motion, which by his own admission was requiring clarification, which we can now see. To date now, when was it? About half an hour ago was the first time that I had seen this clarification. Whether deliberate or inadvertent, withholding such information erodes trust and compromises our ability to fulfil our duties effectively.
Point of order.
Please take a seat,
Computing motive.
How?
What, are you alleging that I've purposely withheld information?
I said whether deliberate or inadvertent. I made sure to cover my bases there. Withholding such information erodes trust and compromises our ability to fulfil our duties effectively. When clarification on a notice of motion is not provided, councillors are unable to critically assess the implications, risks and benefits of a motion. The community is also deprived of transparent governance, since decisions may appear subjective or ill-informed, and the potential for unintended consequences increases due to insufficient scrutiny. We were elected to make informed and responsible decisions that serve the best interests of our community. I agree with Councillor Ryan, we shouldn't be ransomed into decision-making, and without access to facts, data, expert advice or clarity around the intent and implications of a proposal, councillors are effectively being asked to vote blindly, which undermines democratic accountability. But that was just my first point. I firmly oppose the motion to now not cease but pause the Dunsborough Lakes Sports Pavilion process and to initiate a sweeping new feasibility and design direction. While it is framed as a comprehensive alternative, the reality is that it introduces a fragmented, high-risk approach at a critical stage in project delivery. This motion proposes an extensive list of actions, including new feasibility studies, land acquisition efforts, design alterations, and complex lease negotiations, all without a unified strategic vision or agreed community mandate. It risks derailing years of work, alienating key stakeholders, and exhausting staff resources and funding resources without guaranteeing a better outcome. Furthermore, this motion lacks clarity on how decisions will be prioritised or coordinated. It suggests a patchwork of structures, including temporary, demountable and community-built options, without demonstrating how these meet long-term needs for a growing population. Most concerningly, it may jeopardise existing funding opportunities by prematurely halting a process that is already in motion and broadly supported by key clubs. In contrast, Councillor Cox's motion to pause the Dunsborough Lakes Sporting Precinct process and hold a strategic workshop while going out for tender for the original location of the pavilion is a constructive, balanced path forward. It does not undo the progress that has been made. It simply allows the council to recalibrate. After 5 years of extensive consultation, shifting priorities and competing sporting interests, it is both prudent and responsible to step back and reassess. I think we can all agree on that. The strategic workshop proposed before August 2025 would provide elected members with a dedicated space to review the broader needs of indoor and rectangular grass sports, not just in Dunsborough but across the wider district. This is not a delay for delay's sake. It is a clear, time-bound process that allows the city to consolidate data, consult meaningfully and establish updated priorities before committing to significant capital investment. A short pause ensures that this future facility is inclusive, scalable and financially sound. It also restores trust in the process by showing the community that all voices will be heard before final decisions are made. I urge councillors to reject Councillor McNish's overly complex, unstructured notice of motion and instead support Councillor Cox's alternative motion to pause and reflect through a focused strategic workshop. This approach is measured, transparent and future-ready, exactly what our sporting community deserves. And I also think it is laughable that Councillor Ryan is now making untrue and disparaging comments about myself, not only at tonight's meeting, but in previous meetings as well, especially given she has, I think, 4 findings of misconduct found against her.
Please. No.
Point of order.
Point of order. I'll hold that point of order.
I'll have an apology,
Sorry,
please.
Please.
She didn't give me one at the December meeting.
I will have an apology,
All right, please. Sit, everybody. No. Councillor Ryan, please take your seat. Councillor Love.
The findings were found. So I'm not alleging anything untrue.
The relevance, though, is not appropriate.
Being made up. I was just bringing it up.
Mr Mayor.
Councillors, all sit.
Can I just
And she
say
didn't do a point of order.
That's supposed to be confidential. So how did Councillor Love know?
It's public information.
Sorry, please. I would ask you retract that statement, please, Councillor Love.
I'll retract the information that I had found publicly available on the internet.
Thank you.
That was not an apology.
Councillor Ryan, I asked her to retract it. I didn't ask her to apologise. That's my prerogative. Thank you. Okay, Speaker 4. Speaker 4. Speaker against. Sorry, please. I know this is an emotional debate, and I know that it touches many of us, but there is a procedure, and this Chambers has to maintain order, and I will rise against. I'm going to make this very simple, and you don't really need to start the timer, but I feel that, and I commend Councillor McNeish for bringing this up, and it has been a touchy subject, but I want to cover a couple of things. Firstly, I feel that Councillor McNeish's motion in front of us is a little bit too prescriptive. If we are going to go into this with our eyes open, we need to be able to take a step back and look at everything and take it on board. I mean, when, as Councillor Manish said, he said, we just spitballed this over a pizza. I talked with one of the councillors and the CEO, and then I came up with this motion. So I don't like to run a council that runs independently. I think it is our role to work collectively and to listen to the whole of the community, to all of the needs. That said, there was a decision made in March 2024 with a very similar debate, with very similar issues, and that was passed 8-1. It passed. The council made a decision. The best fit decision is a tough one, and we have heard from all of the groups. We have heard from all the councillors, and we have heard from many people who have written to us, and it is our job as the council to make a collective decision for the community, for what's best for the community. Now also, we can't build a 50-metre swimming pool because we might not have the money to do that, but we can plan and we can make sure that we can cover off as much as we can. One of the things that has raised my doubts is that a lot has changed. I've been on council for over 5.5 years now. This plan has come back a long time. But what's happened over 5.5 years? Did we expect COVID? No, we didn't. Did we expect our house prices to increase by 84% and prices to build to go up that much also? No, we did not. Did we expect the population to grow at the speed that it has done? No, we did not. So yes, there is time for reflection. There is time to come back and look at the facts and look at the needs and look at the diversity of our population and what requirements are needed to make sure that we make the right decision. So we do. We take a breath. We get the facts. We listen to the officers, we listen to the directors, we listen to the community, and we listen to each other. And therefore, I will be voting against this motion, but I will be supporting Councillor Cox's. That is a more simple way of just simply pausing. It is also about continuing with at least getting the pricing and an understanding of what this pavilion will cost us to again make an informed decision. And that's all I have to say. So therefore, I request that councillors consider backing Councillor Cox's alternative motion, foreshadow motion. Thank you. Speaker 4. You've had your right to reply, Councillor Ryan, so Councillor McNeish, your rebuttal.
Just a question, sir. Where did the issue or the item or the amendment of Councillor Ryan, and has that been dealt with? Okay, and the outcome was?
It lost.
And the vote?
The vote was 3-4.
How convenient. All right. How disappointing. So maybe you want to set the 5. Okay, so in rebuttal, there's a number of points. What have I got? 16 points. Here we go. The country club has a refined governance model. That's why it works really well. We know that because they told us after years of it not working well. So important for a facility to run well. We don't have that. My motion is pausing for 4 weeks after 4 or even 5 years. Gee, and all the information in there is going to be needed if and whenever anyone sits down to try and work this thing through in a strategic context. Councillor Kennedy, you said we've just seen the item. Well, you've seen the item in the same time as we get all the other items. And this little amendment here, a couple of words, was submitted yesterday, and you see often that these come up in the course of the meeting right in front of you, as this has. I still see no evidence of any indoor courts, which is disappointing, the number one item. The elected members have never, ever had an opportunity to sit in this chamber and talk directly to the clubs. That's really concerning. And it appears that that might not still be the case. How very disappointing. And I wonder why that is. The Sport and Rec strategy talks of a pool at the NCC. That's about how relevant that document is now. Soccer being forced to relocate, well, that'll be interesting. Councillor Kennedy seems to suggest this pavilion will set the context for the whole Sport and Rec of the district. Well, isn't that the tail wagging the dog? And this motion is to pause to get important information that is absent from a potential $6.5 million spend. All the information here is required for any future discussion, consideration, workshop, whatever. Interesting that the pause and the information, acknowledging all the gaps, was destined for discussion with, unfortunately, a workshop. And now I'm hearing foreshadowed motions of a pause, let's get more information, and have a workshop. Well, I'm happy to have initiated this whole discussion if that's the outcome. One wonders why it's taken 14 months to get to this position. 14 months. And if anyone's interested, they can read the council resolution where moved, seconded, voted for, Councillor Beecroft and Councillor Lee, 4 people trying to get the clubs into this chamber to talk to all the councillors in the same room about this exact issue 14 months ago. Councillor Love.
Councillor McNeish, point of order. That's adverse reflection on a decision of council.
It is a decision. I'm saying it is a decision. That was the decision. Voted against. How does, that's the reality of it. And voted for with these people and voted against was
So you're not
Councillor Love.
speaking adversely of that decision of council?
I'm saying it was a decision that the council did not want to do exactly that, get the sporting clubs in and have a workshop with them and have it independently facilitated, and for that to set the strategic direction for sport and rec in this district. Have a look at it. March 2024. And councillors Love, councillors Cox, councillor Kennedy, Mayor Cronin, and councillor Craig voted against.
Councillor McNeish,
that is
please.
Public information. So, yes, the Mayor's correct. Much has changed and cause for pause. And this is the council working. There are different views, and it's terrific to see an invested community and councillors being forced to put what they think forward. This is the way this local government and all local governments should act. And if I'm too prescriptive, well, that's okay. If you want to amend the bits that you don't agree with, be my guest. But that didn't really happen. Anyway, so as I say, I'm happy to have initiated this conversation. This is transparency, that's the whole thing. It was an urgent intervention because I apologise for this, I guess, because I didn't understand that the reserve land to the east was ours in ownership and had no claim by the Department of Education. And I thought, oh, hang on, well, that's easily, we can put a bit of fill there and put some grass down there, and the light overspill, that should cater for a little bit of movement.
Councillor McNeish,
flexibility.
Is this a rebuttal?
Yeah, well, there's hardly an issue I've spoken about that doesn't justify any of these comments. And the other one was the need of basketball, indoor courts, which still doesn't appear anywhere. So I'm still going to support my motion, obviously. I thought there's a lot of credibility in the information that is in there and it's still required into any workshop or any future discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor McNeish. Lovely timing. Okay, therefore, I put forward the motion before you. All those in favour? Councillor Anne Ryan, Councillor Lee, Councillor McNeish and Councillor Beecroft. All those against? Myself, Mayor Cronin, Val Kay, Councillor Kay, Councillor Love, Councillor Cox and Councillor Kennedy. The motion is lost 5-4. I've now put forward the foreshadowed motion, which put forward by Councillor Cox. We'll get that up on the screen. Just give you some time to read that. Are you happy with that amendment, Councillor Cox?
Alternative, yes.
That's what you put forward?
Yes,
Sure.
as written, thank you.
Yeah, I thought there was something about continue with the...
It was contradicting point 2, therefore it's been removed. It was directly contradicting point 2.
Okay. Fine, okay. Therefore, would you like to put your... Yeah, happy to put that motion?
Yes, thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Seconded, Councillor Love. Is there any objection? There is objection. Councillor Cox.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. In putting forward this alternative, I was just interested to hear Councillor McNeish in his notice of motion. In his rebuttal, he mentioned that councillors have never sat in a room with sporting groups to discuss this issue, and it may have been well before his time on council, but I actually sat in on a number of master planning sessions and planning sessions where the community and sporting groups were invited to discuss this very issue. The master planning of the NCC, the Dunsborough playing fields and the new Dunsborough Lake Sporting Precinct. Councillors were invited to sit in on numerous community workshops held in Dunsborough, and I know personally that I attended a number of them. So Councillor McNeish is actually not correct when he states that councillors haven't had an opportunity to sit down with sporting groups and stakeholders in the community.
Point of order. The reference was to these councillors.
Well, I'm part of these councillors, so that reflects on me. So. Yes, but that also includes me, and I'm saying that I actually...
Okay,
yes.
Councillor McNeish. The way I'm holding that because I felt that that's what it felt like, so thank you.
So Councillor McNeish's notice of motion has raised a number of issues, and actually for me the most pertinent issue is related to the lack of indoor court space in Dunsborough. If we're going to invest a considerable amount of money into a sporting pavilion, it is vital that a multi-purpose, and I state multi-purpose because that's what it needs to be, and that the facilities will cater for a number of sporting codes. When the Sporting and Rec Facility Strategy was drafted and endorsed by Council in 2020, we were in the middle of a COVID pandemic, and as a council we could not have foreseen how this event would affect, 1, population growth in Dunsborough and the city, and 2, the ongoing escalation in the cost of delivering infrastructure, and 3, a reduction in funding from state and federal governments. Fast forward to 2025 and we are now faced with a rapidly growing population, and the community priority for increased and improved sporting facilities throughout the city has only intensified. As a council, we are under pressure from all sporting codes to deliver more on less, as governments at both the state and federal level are more and more reluctant to assist us with funding. We are trying our absolute best to meet the expectations of the community, which are considerable. It is rarely possible to please all of the people all of the time. It leads to frustration, and some groups do not want to compromise. Going forward, it is not just not going to be possible or feasible for any community or sporting groups to occupy standalone facilities, as has happened in the past. Therefore, it is in my opinion that if we can tick more boxes in the pavilion build and potentially incorporate a number of indoor courts for basketball, netball, volleyball, etc., then it will free up the oversubscribed NCC and allow it to become just a community centre and allow basketball to grow into the future. However, we also need to consider that if we do this, how it will affect other strategic sporting priorities in the city in terms of funding and delivery. A workshop for elected members to reconsider and review the indoor court and rectangular grass sports provision in Dunsborough will result in a clear direction for the CEO to potentially investigate pavilion redesign or go to tender with the current pavilion design, costings, and also provide us with funding options. This will ensure that we are constructing a well-designed, well-functioning facility that caters for a broad number of sporting codes well into the future. I would urge you councillors to support my alternative because I think it represents the best option in terms of moving forward into the future with this project. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cox. Councillor Love, do you wish to speak?
Sorry, may I just ask a question of Councillor Cox before...
Clarification?
Pardon?
For clarification?
I was going to ask if she'd be interested in just putting an extra few words in.
Okay, well, you can do that when you speak, if that's all right. Thank you, Councillor Beecroft. Councillor Love, do you wish to speak?
I'll reserve my right of reply,
thank
please.
you. Speaker against. Councillor McNeish.
I speak against to move an amendment because, and I'll tell you that in a minute, because I'm really concerned that the clubs have been shut out. Anyway, as to why we're not allowed to go there. So I'm going to definitely move an amendment that the club's presidents be invited into the proposed workshop, which I think, by the way, is a great idea, proposed workshop, that the workshop be independently facilitated, and that way the club presidents might be asked for a session individually as a group or half the day. That can be flexible, worked out with the independent facilitator. And a clarification of the term regional recreation centre. I'm not exactly sure what that is, so that will need to be, I mean, I get criticised for being overly prescriptive, but I'm sorry, that doesn't mean anything to me. So if that can perhaps be clarified by the mover, that would be very useful. And that elected members are asked ahead of time to email the CEO the types of things, the questions, the issues they would like addressed in the workshop, so that these can be compiled, circulated, and where appropriate, including to the clubs, and the clubs can organise their meetings, and we can get the presidents confident to reflect the views of their committee. They can,
So, Councillor Manish, is this an amendment or an alternative?
I'm adding words to Councillor Cox's motion. Of course, she will have to approve or give her consent for that, and I'll let her explain what she means by a regional recreation centre, and then if she decides to consent, then we can proceed.
Councillor Cox, do I have a seconder to these, an amendment?
I'm happy to second that, but I'd like to ask a question of Councillor McNish, if I may. Does the Dunsborough Club's presidents need to be added in there because, or relevant stakeholders?
Look, that's a very good pickup, and looking at this angle and speaking, I haven't been able to, these bloody glasses are a terrible thing getting old. I think the Dunsborough, I think that just leave it as the stakeholder club presidents, because then we can invite Dunsborough in, and the flexibility is there to then extend it to the district. And wouldn't you know, it mirrors exactly what was going to happen 14 months ago, almost word for word.
So you agree to the second that? Therefore, I put... Is there opposition to this? There is opposition. Therefore, I put the motion Councillor McNeish, can you speak to your amendment then, please?
I think that it would be, after everything that's been communicated, it would be just plain rude not to include the clubs and give the clubs the time to have their meetings and establish the response they are all comfortable with. We are, after all, going to provide, hopefully, excellent sporting facilities for our very valued sporting clubs, and we can't have well-patronised, activated, successful sporting facilities without happy clubs. So they are simply going to have to be involved as our valued stakeholders. So please, open it up to the clubs. You've seen how passionate they are, and you've seen how motivated they are. Well, what else would you expect from a sporting fraternity? Also, the efficiency of the workshop would be greatly facilitated by the elected members being able to funnel their suggestions, their questions, as I've tried to do in a spitball exercise of urgent intervention. But here we are, and that's a good thing. And yeah, I think the workshop be independently facilitated, because there are a lot of passions and a lot of emotions that's been noted tonight, and quite rightly so. That's what sport means to people in Australia. So we need to get it right, and that'll be facilitated by an independent person. I'm sure the CEO can find a little bit of money in the budget. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Ryan, just a second.
Yes, thank you. I think this is a great solution, one that I came up with and along with Councillor McNish 14 months ago. So I think we've come a full circle, and I think the community would be highly appreciative of this, councillors. So I urge you to vote for the motion.
Speaker against?
Procedural motion.
Yeah.
Can the motion now be put? Not sure of the clause, sorry.
The motion can now be put if you wish. The amendment, yeah, so we're now voting on the amendment.
Yeah, the amendment. Can this amendment now be put?
Yep. Does he? I'll need a move. So you're moving that motion, the procedure motion, and is there a seconder? Seconded, Councillor Love. If you can just hold 2 seconds. As there was no one spoke against it, we will go. Okay, I now put the procedural motion to the vote. All those in favour?
Can I have a point of order, please, sir? Correct me if I'm wrong, that a procedural motion to put something to the vote can't be moved until and unless the speaker is closed?
No, the speaker, you can't close if there was no speakers against.
So I've got an understanding that I just closed on the amendment. So.
No, you spoke to it.
Sorry.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay, councillors. At the moment, we have.
So just clarifying.
I'm just about to clarify.
We're now voting for the amendment.
Okay.
Correct?
No. All right. There is a procedural motion to put to the vote, which means there's no more discussion. Okay, no more debate. And that has been on the amendment. Yes, what is in front of us?
So we're voting on the amendment.
Well, no. Firstly, we're going to vote whether we even... They'll have to tax me. Firstly, we will vote on the procedural motion to put the motion, which is before us, the amendment. Okay, so put the amendment. If that fails, we'll continue. We have a... So,
Through the chair.
Sorry.
Through the chair. The motion that's being considered at the moment is that the motion now be put, and that's that the amendment motion now be put. So that's what elected members are voting on. And if that carries, then the motion will be put with...
No.
With... Then you go... And... Yes.
The motion being...
As I thought. Okay, what we are doing is we are voting on the procedural motion just to put the motion. Once, if that is successful or not successful, we will then go back to this and do the vote. But there will be no further, if it's successful, there'll be no further debate on the amendment that is currently in front of us. Is everybody clear? So therefore, I put the procedural motion that we put the amended motion in front of us. All those in favour? Okay, so that's 8-1. So it's 1. Therefore, I now... So I'm putting the amended... And should this amendment fail, then we will revert to the original motion. Councillors, I will now put the amendment that is in front of you. So just to be clear, if this is voted for, we then continue with this motion as the substantive motion. If this fails, it will revert to the original motion put forward by Councillor Cox. Is everybody understanding? It's been a long night. Okay, therefore, I put the amended motion, the amendment, I put the amendment in front of you. All those in favour? All those against? Okay, so the amendment is now in play as a substantive motion, and that was 7-2. It was 1-7-2, with Councillor Kennedy and Councillor Cronin voting against it. Councillor McNeish, you can now resume.
Mr Mayor, can I please move another procedural motion that this motion now be put, the substantive?
No.
Mr Mayor, before you consider that, and that's fine to place that, I did ask for some clarification from Councillor Cox as to what regional recreation centre actually is. I mean, I don't know what that is.
For clarification, the Regional Recreation Centre is a potential future sporting precinct to be located, district facility that we have been discussing at length over the last 2 years.
So
It does not currently have a name, so that is the closest.
Yeah, the district level, what we set the reserve up for. If that could be clarified in what we're voting on, thank you.
Are we able to change the wording from regional recreational centre to the
Regional Sporting Precinct.
future district level?
District Sporting Precinct.
Are you happy with, now we're naming things on the fly, I like this. The future district sporting precinct. Okay. Are you, Councillor Cox, are you happy with that change? Is the seconder happy with that change? Councillor Love? Yes. Okay, I now have a procedural motion to put the motion. I know, I'm getting there. And that moved by Councillor Cox. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Love. Is there any opposition? Okay, well, there's no debate. I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour that the procedural motion without debate goes ahead. Now I put the motion that is in front of you as a substantive motion. All those in favour? All those against? The motion is carried 8-1 with Councillor Kennedy voting against. Thank you. I now revert to... Thank you. I now move on to the third item of the evening. Item 10, we now move on to the items brought forward and adoption by exception resolution, that the committee recommendations for items 1. Actually, I will allow the gallery just to leave if you want to. Thank you very much for your attendance. Yes. Election's up in 6 months. Anyone interested? Councillors. Okay, that the committee recommendations for items 11.1, 11.2, 11.4, 11.5, 11.6 and 11.1 and the officer recommendation for items 12.3, 13.1 and 16.1 be adopted en bloc. Do I have a mover? Moved Councillor Cagg, seconded Councillor Love. Is there any opposition? Being no opposition, I put the motion. All those in favour? The motion is carried 9-0, absolute majority. So items to be dealt on separate resolution. Item 11.3 is the amendment to the aged housing capital requiring absolute majority. Do I have a mover? Moved Councillor Love, seconded, is that a finger up, Councillor Beecroft? Was that? No. Councillor Kennedy, second. Is there any opposition? Being no opposition, I put the motion. All those in favour, the motion is carried 9-0. Absolute majority achieved. Item 12.4 is the special character areas in the local planning policies, and we have an impartiality interest from Councillor Cox, if you'd like to.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I declare an impartiality interest in item 12.4 as my land is located within a special character area. I declare that I will consider the item solely on its merits and vote or act accordingly.
Thank you, Councillor Cox. The item 12.4 is in front of you. Do I have a mover? Move Councillor Ryan, seconded Councillor McNeish. Is there any opposition? Being no opposition, I put the motion. All those in favour? Motion is carried 9-0. Moving on to item 13.2, the RFQ 25-035, the supply and delivery of 2 waste trucks. Mr Wong has left us. Do I have a mover? Moved Councillor Love, seconded Councillor Ryan. Is there any opposition? Lee, I apologise, Councillor Lee. Is there any opposition? Being no opposition, I put the motion. All those in favour? Motion is carried 9-0, absolute majority achieved. Now moved on to pulled item 12.1, which is the City of Busselton Bushfire Risk Management Plan 2025 to 2027, pulled by Councillor Andrew McNeish. The alternative recommendation is in front. Councillor McNeish, do you wish to put your motion?
As written, thank you.
Thank you very much. Do you have a seconder? Councillor Ryan. Is there any opposition? Being no opposition, I put the motion. All those in favour? All carried 9-0. Item 12.2. Consent to advertise local planning scheme number 22. This is being pulled by Councillor Jared Kennedy. It's page 45 of your agenda.
Mr Mayor, I declare my interest.
Sorry, yes, I do have some interest there. My oversight. If you would like, I have two interests from Councillor McNeish and from Councillor Cox. Councillor Cox first.
I declare a financial interest in item 12.2 as changes to the scheme to allow second dwelling on rural properties may result in a financial gain to me as the owner of a rural property. Given this interest, I will leave the meeting while this item is being considered.
Sorry, just 2 seconds. Sorry, I'm thinking I might need to. Yeah. Actually, I will declare this is a financial interest, as I do have a second property on my.
So while you think about that, can I read mine out?
Yeah, you can do.
Thank you. I declare a financial interest in item 12.2 as I host a two-room in-home B&B that might experience an increase in patronage should the ability to secure an unhosted tourist accommodation approval be restricted in LPS 22. I've co-contracted with my daughter to secure an as yet unconstructed lot that falls within an area affected by the proposed restrictions on unhosted tourist accommodation. The proposal to introduce a new rural residential coding regime into the LPS 22 will, should it eventuate, impact on my ability to subdivide my home lot, should I make such an application. So given this interest, I will leave the meeting while the item is being considered. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor McNeish. Is Councillor Cox still there? If I may. Oh, is it here?
Use your name, though.
Yeah, try and use mine. Councillors, I declare financial interest in item 12.2 as the changes to the scheme to allow a second dwelling on rural properties may result in a financial change, I will say, because I already have a second property, so the perception may be that I could make a loss. So to me, as the owner of a rural property, given this interest, I will leave the meeting while this item is being considered. Thank you. Councillor Ryan, would you please take the chair?
How are you? So, where are we at? So the first item is a pulled item by Councillor Kennedy. Councillor Kennedy, would you like to move your alternate?
Yes, move as written, thank you.
And do you have a seconder? Is there any opposition to the motion? So, Councillor Kennedy, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yes, thank you. With the consent of the seconder, I'd like to amend this motion to include Councillor Love's alternative. If, yes, regarding car parking and a few other environmental... No? No? Okay. Yes, just car parking. Do I have that consent?
You have the consent.
Do I need to speak to...
Would you like to speak?
Yeah, okay, yeah. I guess because I will speak because there's nothing in writing, I guess, for the public to see. So I'll just quickly run through it. So, timer on, yeah. The local planning scheme is an opportunistic moment to incorporate this provision, enabling public consultation on top of the recent local planning policies and the non-preferred area amendments. And if the minister doesn't approve this, we fall back to those provisions. So the parliamentary inquiry levelling the playing field identified in finding 16 that local planning schemes can provide the flexibility necessary for local governments to their appropriate local context. The inquiry also identified the southwest corner of WA and the wider region of Margaret River as one of 2 hotspots of unhosted short-term residential accommodations. The council plan identified the community desire for housing and responsible growth as one of the top 5 priorities. So according to Maslow's hierarchy of needs, shelter should be the primary focus for human society over and above tourism and the uncertainty and risks for investors. The recent local planning policy highlighted that current residents, renters and traditional accommodation providers desired further restrictions to USTRA. Housing supply is critically constrained and was highlighted in the local planning strategy and has been further exacerbated by current conditions. Change of use to USTRA continues to deplete housing supply. In the 24-25 year, the city had 490 notices of completion for single dwelling builds compared to this year's tracking of approximately 180 USTRA determinations. That's essentially a loss of 35% of new residential dwellings to tourist accommodation. The Short-Term Accommodation Association Australia claims USTRA is 1% of housing supply across Australia. However, Busselton is actually 6.5%. We can't afford to see what the market determines the saturation limit will be. There is 1,400 USTRA available now and continues to grow. That will do. The city's local planning strategy says to not support planning proposals that would significantly compromise the capacity of urban growth areas to accommodate planned growth. So we can clearly see that USTRA conflicts with this. The Rental Affordability Index quotes, in inner city areas and holiday location, the rise of short-term renting has reduced stock in the long-term rental market. This further emphasises that USTRA is a real concern. Housing supply is detrimental to a sense of community, especially in the preferred areas. So regenerative tourism and permaculture principles encourage us to observe and interact before problems become obvious, such as over-tourism. The major issue of business is obtaining workers, and infrastructure capacity has reached its limits in peak periods because a USTRA replaces a family with several families. Touching on housing affordability, USTRA and non-preferred areas creates a 2-tiered economy. The residential area, the RAI reported Byron Bay, Noosa, Broome and City Beach is extremely unaffordable. Busselton is on track to be next, and we can already see this in Yellingup and Eagle Bay, and now potentially the preferred areas, which is all along Geograph Bay Road. The Residential Affordability Index highlights the affordability of Perth and WA deteriorated the most in comparison to the rest of Australia. Finding 11 of the inquiry shows evidence from other jurisdictions, especially Southwest, that the growth in short-term rentals affects the availability of long-term rentals and affordability of housing. And Ustra is snowballing that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kennedy. Councillor Lee, you're the seconder.
Councillor Love.
What's your name? Lee Love.
And I was hesitant to support Councillor Kennedy's alternative initially. However, upon reflection, I decided to, because I believe it is both inconsistent and counterproductive that the WAPC chose not to include hosted and unhosted short-term rental accommodations like bed and breakfast and holiday homes within the redefined tourist and visitor accommodation category. These accommodations clearly serve the same purpose as hotels and service departments, providing short-term lodging for visitors and tourists. By excluding them, the WAPC undermines its own goal of creating a consistent and fair planning system, leaving local governments with unclear guidelines and communities with uneven protections. If we want to ensure a transparent and equitable and future-ready approach to tourism planning, then all forms of short-term visitor accommodation must be treated with the same level of oversight and accountability, especially unhosted short-term rental accommodations, as these tend to be our biggest area of concern and complaints received from our community, which is why I'll be supporting Councillor Kennedy's alternative motion to make unhosted short-term rental accommodation an ex-use in residential zones. As officers have noted in my alternative, this hasn't gone out for the Local Planning Scheme 22 hasn't gone out for proper consultation yet, but as all councillors know, car parking is always a topic of concern during peak periods. Therefore, I would think it is best that until we have done our car parking strategy, I believe it is best to err on the side of caution with requiring the provision of car parking for new developments within regional or district centres to provide car parking per Clause 1 for developments exceeding 200 metres squared, as we constantly have complaints over the lack of car parking. I acknowledge that we do not want our general regional and district centres to be too car-centric, which is why I've came to the compromise of not requiring any developments under 200 metres square to provide car parking. With the amendments I've made, it will still reduce the required car parking from what is in our current local planning scheme. However, it still allows for more provision of car parking than the officer's recommendation. As the officers have pointed out, it isn't excessively more than what has been originally suggested. I've also included clauses 10 and 11 in the City of Busselton's draft local planning scheme number 22, if Mr Murphy wants to go down just so that other councillors can refer to it, is not only responsible but essential for shaping a sustainable future. These clauses offering modest car parking reductions for developments that provide bicycle infrastructure or electric vehicle bike charging stations aligns with section 3.1 of the Local Government Act 1995, which requires local governments to promote economic, social and environmental sustainability, address climate risks and consider the long-term impacts of their decisions. This approach reflects current best practice already adopted by councils like Vincent, Stirling and Joondalup, demonstrating that targeted, thoughtful planning incentives can attract private investment into infrastructure that benefits the broader community. We have a duty to plan not just for today's needs, but for the generations who will live, work and move through our city tomorrow. These clauses are modest, flexible and well controlled, ensuring discretion remains with the council while sending a strong message that we support innovation, climate action, and healthier transport options. By implementing these measures, we reinforce our dedication to a strong, contemporary Busselton that sets a standard and achieves real results for the community, environment and economic growth. And that's why I urge all councillors to support this alternative motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Love. I'm also going to speak against and move a further amendment, and that my item 12.2 be added to the amendment. Do I have a seconder? Sorry? Yep. Wording will be there on the screen. Thank you. Councillors, it's suggested that... Yep. Councillor Lee. Oh, is there any opposition to that? Councillor Love? I'll speak to it. It is suggested that special control areas be introduced and Mr Forrest will be allowed a non-conforming right. Why would we make something a non-conforming use? It makes no sense. We're told we want a simpler local planning scheme. Non-conforming use rights, often referred to as grandfathered rights, allow properties to continue operations that were lawful under previous zoning regulations but no longer comply with current zoning laws. While these rights protect property owners from abrupt changes, they can pose several challenges in urban planning and community developments. So why? This is simply clouding the water. The amendment seeks to prohibit extractive industries in areas where current approvals already exist. Yes, the scheme acknowledges non-conforming use rights, but applying an SCA creates uncertainty and limits expansion for a desperately needed limestone resource in the region. It raises doubt for future renewal applications and risks unnecessary regulatory confusion, which we have discussed time and again, called discretion. What is one planner's version of an acceptable proposal compared to another's view and can be worlds apart? But what is most concerning is that the uses zoning aimed at one lot that we have previously prosecuted in the Magistrates' Court and lost in the Supreme Court on challenge. It could appear that zoning powers are being used in a targeted way. What we are being asked to approve is not the role of the LPS, it is a job of the environmental regulators. The Ramsar wetlands is a matter for the federal EPA. And local environment impacts are assessed through the state by DWER. Yes, the LPS does align with theme 8.2L, but SPP 2.4 is planning for basic raw materials and identified as an essential infrastructure and agriculture resource. In WA's planning framework, state planning policies provide the highest level of planning policy guidelines. They are prepared by WAPC and are intended to inform and guide all levels of planning, including local government planning schemes and policies. The local planning strategy says extraction should be supported where consistent with environmental protection, and rightly so. We must use our strategy to guide our scheme. This amendment gives an appearance of targeting one landowner, where it is the role of the environmental regulators to make environmental decisions. They have the scientists and the skill to do it. This property has been in the Forrest family for 5 generations. To be suggesting the proposal should go out to community consultation where Mr Forrest has never been alerted by staff to discuss the matter with a targeted amendment to his land is not palatable to me, and I would suggest the Planning Minister will disallow this amendment anyway based on SPP 2.4. The suggestion that mapping hasn't changed since LPS 21 is not strictly correct. Wetland mapping is inherently uncertain and depends on ground truthing. Ground truthing is a process of collecting direct, on-site data to validate and verify information obtained through remote sensing or other indirect methods. This practice ensures that data interpretations accurately reflect real-world conditions. This is beyond the city's planning department and why we refer those agencies previously outlined, and appears to be patch interference and trying to take over from other agencies. Surely we have enough to do in our planning department. The planning regulators already require the environmental impact to be considered. Adding an SCA risks confusion and opens the door to inconsistent decision making. If the aim is to protect wetlands, then a referral to the environmental agencies, as previously discussed, is appropriate. But to be using this amendment as a blunt instrument and was not flagged in our local planning strategy, the policy this draft is derived of. Councillors, planning schemes should regulate planning matters, and this is an unnecessary overreach, duplicates existing systems and would create confusion. Thank you. Yep. Right.
So it's substantially the same, but we just move them to where the other modifications are.
Yep, that's fine.
Point of clarity, if I may, through the presiding member. It's a question more so directed to Director Barber, just given the presentation we had from the representatives for Mr. Forrest. They had alluded to the fact that Special Control Area 2 wetlands was only applied over that area. Can I confirm if there's other areas within our local planning scheme map that fall under that Special Character Area wetlands too?
So there's two special control areas, one proposed over that property. So the wetland one, which I think is number 2, already exists in the current scheme. So their property is already designated that under the current scheme. It's being carried over. I think it's 8, is the extractive industry, which applies to 400 odd properties across the ridge and anywhere where there's environmental significance, not just Mr. Forrest's property.
Councillor Lee.
I'll reserve my right, thank you.
Speakers against?
I will speak against the motion before us, which proposes to advertise the draft local planning scheme number 22 with modifications that, if accepted, would remove critical environmental protections from our planning framework, specifically Special Control Area 8 and Special Control Area 2. Let me begin with Special Control Area 8, Extractive Industry Prohibition Area. This Special Control Area is not arbitrary. It has been proposed to safeguard areas of significant environmental value, values that cannot be easily replaced once lost. While it is true that the land in question currently holds existing extractive industry approvals, the inclusion of the SCA does not revoke these rights. Non-conforming use provisions under the Act would continue to apply. In other words, current operations can continue lawfully. What the Special Character Area does achieve is proactive and forward-looking protection. It sends a clear message that, as a city, we are committed to aligning future land use with both environmental sustainability and community expectations. This is entirely consistent with our theme 8.2 L of our local planning strategy, which states that the extraction of basic raw materials should only proceed where it is consistent with environmental protection and amenity. In this case, we must acknowledge that the proximity of the subject land lots, and might I remind you, we are only looking at one landowner's lots in this whole local planning scheme of making this modification. And this lot is in the proximity to internationally recognised Ramsar listed wetlands, renders the land unsuitable for further extraction. Once this habitat is degraded, we cannot undo that damage. Protecting our wetlands and the biodiversity, water quality and flood resilience they provide is not a luxury, it is a responsibility. Similarly, the proposal to remove special control area to wetlands is deeply concerning. The mapping has not changed, like we've just heard from Director Barber, from Local Planning Scheme 21 to Local Planning Scheme 22. What has changed is this proposal to amend the alternative, and this proposal will weaken the tools we use to protect our wetlands. Special character areas serve a clear purpose. They provide transparency and certainty for landowners, developers and the community. They outline specific provisions and objectives that go beyond the general rules in the planning and development regulations. Removing the special character area simply to rely on broad regulations is short-sighted. If we accept that logic, like the staff had made comment, we may as well eliminate all special character areas, including those that protect our unique landscapes and neighbourhood character. Such a step would erode the very fabric of our local planning framework. We have such a niche and complex local planning framework and regulations and planning policies within the City of Busselton. This scheme is in draft form. The appropriate and democratic venue for assessing the validity of these special control areas is through the public consultation process, which we've just resolved to put out these local planning policies to advertise for public comment. So I find it astounding that we're going to rejig the scheme map without that community consultation just to look at one landowner's property or lots. I don't know. And so the public consultation process where community members, environmental groups and relevant agencies can actually all have their say. So by removing the special characters areas before the public has had a chance to comment, we shut down meaningful engagement before it has even begun. Colleagues, we must ask ourselves, what kind of legacy do we wish to leave? Do we want a planning scheme that is robust, transparent and environmentally responsible, or one that is weakened before it even reaches the community for feedback? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Love. Do I have a speaker for? Speaker against? No speakers against. Councillor Lee, your right of reply. Sorry.
Thank you. I'll just be quick because I think Councillor Ryan, you covered this in yours, but what I would say is that it's the remit of environmental experts and specialists, which I suspect was undertaken when the previous extractive industries permits were approved, that they would be looking at the environmental impact of this. People with much more specialised skills than me. Extraction has been occurring on this land and I've not seen any evidence from any environmental impact studies, which I would expect have been continuously being done while this extractive industry has been operating. I haven't seen any evidence that says that it has had a detrimental impact on the environment there. So I expect that environmental approvals, particularly in this location, have been robust and stringent, and I haven't seen any evidence to go against what Councillor Ryan has put in her motion.
I'll exercise my right of reply. Just in answer to some of the comments made, the staff said that this draft would remain policy neutral. So it was to my surprise that this appeared in the draft. The EPA is the arbiter of what is right and what is wrong as far as environmental standards are concerned. And Mr Forrest, who's owned that land for 5 generations, I'm sure doesn't want to degrade his land and spoil it for everyone else. So the suggestion that it should go out to public advertising for land that Mr Forrest owns for the community to have public input, I think is a bit strange. And it's a special control area, Councillor Love, not a special character area. So I think control is in the wording. Thank you. I will put the amendment to the vote. All those in favour? It's the amendment. Yes? Against? The amendment is carried. Yep. I'll now put the... Right. Yep. So we now have the substantive motion. Is there any opposition to the substantive motion? Mm-hmm. Yep. So is there any other speakers who want to speak for or against? Your light's on.
Sorry.
So, Councillor Kennedy, your right of reply.
Nothing further to add. Thank you.
So the motion is before you. Do we... Yep. Yep. So let's put it to the vote. All those in favour? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Obviously no against. Thank you, councillors. There's nothing else on that one, is there? That's it.
I've still got this motion in front of me. Recasting. Everything, okay.
So, for the benefit of the members, including yourself.
Okay. So for the benefit of those online and everyone here, the alternate recommendation in front of us is the result that was voted on 6-0. So absolute majority. Thank you, councillors. Moving on. Was that it? So the next ordinary council meeting will be held on Wednesday, the 11th of June, 2025. I now declare the meeting closed at 8:33 p.m. Thank you for your attendance, everyone. And speak soon.